My entitled regional and district manager at McDonald's say that they will fire me if I don't leave my break time early and help out with a rush. But I decided to maliciously comply and get some petty revenge, as I instead threw these rules right back at their face in a way that would make them lose thousands of dollars, all because of some stupid rules that they made. Here's what happened. So this happened a few years ago when I worked at McDonald's. The one I worked in was near a bunch of schools, so most of the staff was high school kids. As summer vacation started, we began having the trouble of an employee getting a break, and then spending their break eating their meal and conversating with their friends who were still working in the kitchen. It was having a seriously bad effect on productivity, as well as posing quite a few health risks. So our manager finally initiated a rule that if you were on your break, you couldn't leave the break room until your break was over. And this went swimmingly until the kids went back to school. We then had a new problem. Short staffing during break cycles meant our ticket times would skyrocket during rushes. Management then lifted the rules so that employees on break could clock in early and help out with the rush. However, the district manager didn't like the implications of employees working shortened or no break shifts and forcefully reinstated the rule. They also doubled down by saying that employees who tried to work during their scheduled break would be written up or even terminated for doing so. And so this is where our malicious compliance comes into play. And trust me, this is a good one. The date was 4/20, which is a day that nobody wants to be working at a fast food place, much less McDonald's. We had been getting slammed so hard from the open of the store that we called in extra help from other stores, including the regional and district managers. As the break cycle began, the management was pleased with the sub 2-minute ticket times that they had managed to maintain. We had a few breaks though, and we were managing well. Then came my break. As soon as I sat down to eat, someone came into the store and ordered 47 double quarter pounders, and then immediately after that order, someone in the drive-thru ordered 75 20-piece nugget meals. The amount of panic in the kitchen was palpable. I was comfortably lounging in a chair, browsing my phone, and enjoying my meal while the kitchen struggled to keep up with the orders. As ticket times began to soar, the management did exactly as I expected. The district manager came into the break room and demanded me to end my break early and help in the kitchen. But my response was simple. I'm sorry, but according to the rules you made, I could be written up or terminated for completing your request. Then, after I said that, I continued browsing my phone, trying to enjoy the last 10 minutes of my break. The regional manager then entered the room and said that he would personally terminate me if I didn't do the thing I wasn't supposed to do. The other employee who was on break with me immediately rose and clocked in, despite still having 10 minutes left on her break. She was then written up for breaking the rule after the shift was over, so I felt good sitting in my chair and continuing to ignore them. In the aftermath, the people who made the giant orders took what was made after half an hour and left with refunds for unmade food, and we're talking maybe $150 each. And customers who were waiting for smaller orders were compensated with gift cards for their patience, and yet many walked out without even getting their orders. In fact, we paid out nearly $1,500 in gift cards. Now, because customers were walking out on orders without collecting them, we had nearly $5,000 in food wasted that night. All of the closers went home with nearly 2 bundled boxes of burgers, fries, and nuggets. Well, the regional and district manager were moved to a different region, and the rule was edited to say that you were able to clock back in early at the manager's discretion in the event of a rush. Because I was the only employee who held his ground against the regional and district managers during the rush, I was rewarded with free meals and drinks until I moved away from my hometown and simply couldn't eat at that McDonald's anymore, because this experience was truly exhausting. Wow, I love the double standards here because this is honestly so unbelievable. The district and regional manager both are like, listen, I need you to break the rules or else I'm gonna break the rules by firing you. And it's like, dude, instead of complaining to me, maybe pick up an apron and do the work yourself. Like, if these people actually cared about their job and getting these people through and getting their orders to them, then they would roll their sleeves up and help out. But instead, it's pretty obvious they'd rather drag you into it and be like, no, you do this. And that is really unfair in my opinion, and I just don't blame you for being annoyed by this. So good for you for getting some petty revenge, as well as like throwing this right back in their face. Because from the sounds of it, these people absolutely deserve it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My mom meddled in my first job and ruined our relationship, and I'm now at a breaking point and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Months ago, I graduated college and I got my first job. For reference, I'm 22 years old and my mom is 60. I would tell my mom how miserable the job was making me, but she would ignore my pain and say that I should keep the job for at least a year so I don't look like a job hopper. She continued putting so much pressure on me to keep the job that eventually I simply couldn't take it anymore. So I came up with a plan to do 2 weeks of work off the the clock so that I could just quit and leave. My mom was happy about me doing that, which looking back, I find absolutely repulsive. When I quit the job, my boss, who was a 70-year-old female, was super mad at me and demanded that I do more tasks and went as far as contacting my mom and sending my mom the list of things that she wanted me to do. And you know what? My mom took my boss's side. My mom could have ignored my boss's text messages and could have let me be the adult and handle it myself, but she had to insert herself as the authority in the situation and monitor me and put as much pressure on me as possible so that I would obey her and my boss. My mom even threatened to erase my hard drives, which had all of my most important memories and projects on them. I then wrote my mom a letter to say how much she hurt me, which made her more rageful, and she threatened to abandon me and make me pay her mortgage since she would be gone. But I'm used to her threats of abandonment. It's kind of typical. So eventually I gave in and I dropped it and we just moved on. Since then, she would bring up my first boss into any and all conversations, thinking that there weren't still any hurt feelings and we could just laugh about it. I would be tremendously triggered, but I'd hide it and just carry on. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore, and I said, I don't want you bringing up my first boss. I don't find it funny. And she sort of respected my wishes. In an ideal world, I wouldn't have to forbid my mom from speaking about certain topics because we'd have all our hardships resolved, but we never resolved this hardship and it was festering into a landmine that makes me bitter for days when she brings it up because she still has never acknowledged her wrongs or has shown any remorse for meddling and causing damage that I still have to live with. I want to talk to her about it, but it will cause a war. But I feel like I can only let go of my resentment by receiving closure and finally resolving the situation. What should I do? Oh man, if this was me, I would absolutely be looking to move out. The original poster clarified that yes, they do live with their mom still, and that in my opinion is crazy. Like seriously, she meddled in your first job and literally like ruined everything for you. They also go on to explain that their former boss found out about their mom by literally going to the emergency contact and contacting her that way. And that is crazy toxic. Like you already quit that job, you gave them 2 weeks notice. So the fact that your old boss and your mom all pretty much like teamed up against you is just so weird. And she's now bringing it up all the time like it's some funny thing. But it's like, no dude, you literally did not apologize for this. So I think if I was in your shoes, I would be trying to move out as soon as possible. Because what she did to you, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. My entitled managers make my life a living nightmare after they make a big fuss out of me taking time off of work because of strep throat. But in reality, I find out I have cancer, putting them in their place in a way that they truly did not expect. Here's what happened. In 2010, I worked at a corner drugstore as a department lead. I was 22, I did the bare minimum, and I hated working Sundays, which were basically my Fridays. I will be the first to admit that I could have been a better employee, but I knew this wouldn't be my career and I was just coasting until I graduated. Sunday, May the 2nd rolls around and I felt awful. I had already not been feeling great, and that Friday I was a bit under the weather. When Saturday came around, I felt pretty okay, but then Sunday hit like a stack of bricks. About 2 hours into my shift, I asked my manager, who we will call Ryan, if I could go home. The guys in management despised me, so I was not surprised when this particular manager pretty much snarkily responded by saying, "You need to get someone to come in and finish your shift." And it's like, fine, okay, no problem. So I called one of my coworkers and she came in for me. My boyfriend at the time was working at a hotel down the street, and we also shared a car, so I went to his hotel to sleep until he got off of work. I slept in the lobby for 9 hours straight, but when we made it home, I started coughing up blood. My boyfriend then forced me to go to the ER that night, and it was there that I was diagnosed with strep and admitted to the hospital. That Monday on the 3rd, one of the nurses informed me that I would be in the hospital for at least a week, so I called the store to let them know. The manager I spoke with, who we will call Brad, hated me more than anyone else at that store. I told him the news and he said to me, "You'll be out for a week because of strep throat?" I then said to him, "Yeah, I mean, do you want to talk to the nurse? She's right here." Brad responded by saying, "No, we'll see you back when you get back." He was clearly irritated by the news, but there was nothing I could do about it. Now, what I hadn't told him, as I didn't know at the time, is that I was admitted because the hospital suspected I had something much worse. I was visited by a doctor on Monday who explained that he'd like to perform a bone marrow biopsy. Now, I had no idea what that was or why he would want to do one, except that my blood count looks really weird. I had the procedure done and continue recovering from strep, and on Tuesday, May 4th, the doctor from the day before pays me another visit. They say that they got the results back, and apparently I've got an aggressive form of leukemia that requires immediate treatment. They then said that they'll be sending me to a hospital in a big city to start chemo tonight. Well, my world was turned upside down. I called my best friends, all of whom I worked with, and I invited them to the hospital to share the news. One of my friends had a shift that afternoon and broke the news to the store. They said that I had cancer. I then spent 28 arduous days in the hospital fighting for my life. My mom had visited my store a few times during my hospital stay and talk with my store manager, letting her know what was going on. My manager was very understanding and supportive, but the other managers never said a word to me, my mom, or my friends about the situation. When I finally got out of the hospital, I went to my old store to pick up my maintenance cancer medications. As I made my way back towards the pharmacy, where I was bruised, bald, with a bright purple PICC line sticking out of my arm, I turned down aisle 10, and who do I just so happen to see? None other than Ryan stocking the vitamins. I say gleefully, "Oh, hi, Ryan." And trust me when I say this, the look on his face was priceless. Ryan says to me, "Oh my God, are you okay? How are you feeling?" I said to him, "I'm great now, thank you. It's a good thing I left early that Sunday and ended up in the hospital, so they found the cancer." And you know what? The whole situation was absolutely delicious. Despite everything I went through, the feeling of complete vindication when they had to face my cancer-ridden self was incredible. I never ended up going back to work there, and I had to file for disability because the next 5 months of my life were week-long hospital stays, followed by constant transfusions, checkups, and even a case of sepsis that almost took me out. But either way, I still remember Ryan's face, and it all still brings a smile to mine. Wow, talk about like the best unintentional revenge you could possibly have. I think anybody who's worked a job can understand that sometimes you just have coworkers who suck. They hate you for no reason, and it really is so frustrating to deal with. And to that extent, I'm sure it felt really good to get back at Ryan and Brad in a way that you probably did not expect. Like seriously, Brad was acting like, "Oh, you're in the hospital for strep throat?" It's like, "No, dude, I've got cancer. I just don't know it yet." And what kind of manager would be like, "Oh, wow, whatever, we'll see you when you get back." Or even like wish you well and be like, "Oh, I hope you get better soon." Like the both of them are giant pieces of garbage, and that is so uncalled for. So I'm glad you're better, and I'm glad you got your revenge, because those two guys absolutely deserved it. My parents are so distant from me that it really breaks my heart that they weren't there for me in my time of need, and now I honestly don't know what to do. Okay, so my parents have always been very nonchalant when it came to me. Being the eldest of 3 siblings, I always got the least amount of love and attention with the most amount of responsibility. I think I knew that growing up, but didn't really let it affect me too much. While my 2 siblings needed more attention, I was pretty sidelined. Again, I didn't recognize that too much, or rather suppressed it enough. I dormed for when I was 18, followed by living on my own and then with my husband. My mother would only call me if I called her, never once visited my dorm or my apartment, and now only has been to my house 2 times. And you know what? I adored my family. My dad was in the military, so we were his luggage our whole lives, moving from 6 different countries and 4 states by the time I was a teenager. I mean, they are all that I have. Just the 5 of us. I didn't bother making friends because what's the point? We were just going to be moving again. I didn't have any other family around me, so it was honestly just them. Now, this next part is what made me realize that I needed to take a break from them. My husband and I recently started trying for a baby, and a couple of weeks ago got pregnant, and within a week had a miscarriage. Emotionally, it was sad, but physically, it was one of the worst pains I've ever been through. In fact, the miscarriage wasn't complete, so they had to intervene with medicine. So for the first 3 days pre-medication, I had a lot of pain, some fever, some chills, followed by taking the medication for another 4 days, which was an absolute nightmare. I mean, my husband had to literally hold me down as I screamed viscerally out of pain. When the miscarriage initially happened, I had let my mother know about it, and honestly, I just don't know. I half expected her to maybe come and see me, or even help me with a little bit of food or something like that. For reference, we live about 17 minutes away from their house by car, but during those 2 weeks, she only called me twice. When I texted her why she didn't stop by, when she told me that she would in one of the calls, she said that I didn't call her back to confirm. And mind you, I had a fever of 102 degrees Fahrenheit. I've seen my mother make heaps of food and dishes when her friends are sick, or when her friend had just moved into a new house and their kitchen had not been set up yet. And even still, there she was with multiple dishes at tow. When her friend's daughter was too pregnant to do anything, she cooked a week's worth of food for her. But her own daughter was in pain, going through something emotionally and physically breaking. And yet still, I got nothing besides what, 2 calls? I know I have pretty much taken care of myself my entire life. I always said I don't need anybody else, and I lived by myself for years. In fact, I've been through any heartache or life issues by myself, but this, however, I honestly just don't know how to feel, because this feels so much more painful. This hurts a lot, and I'm not sure why. I cried so much. I mean, maybe it's the hormones? Not having any other family to rely on, no aunties or cousins. Even my dad works a lot and is not very emotionally available, and my siblings are too self-involved for me to even confide in them. I thought that my mom might want to be there for me, so that is why this hurts so bad. Since the 2 calls weeks ago, I haven't even bothered calling her. Today, she called me, and you know what? I just didn't pick up. I think I just need a little break from her and from all of them. This is going to sound insane, but I've been fantasizing about pulling a Julia Roberts character from Sleeping with the the enemy and just relocate and leave everyone here behind. New name, new stories, new friends, everything. It's been a semi-toxic disassociating cope, even though weirdly enough, it does put me at ease. What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, I am so sorry this happened to you. Really, like that is so hard, and I'm so sorry that you had to go through that literally by yourself. Your mom wasn't even there for you, and literally nobody else in the family even like gave a crap to like talk to you about it. And I can only imagine what that's like, and truly, from the bottom of my heart, I really am so sorry that you had to deal with that. So with all things considered, I don't blame you for taking a step away and trying to have like some kind of distance, because if I went through something even remotely close to that, which I don't think I ever will, and I had family who just didn't care and didn't reach out, I would be heartbroken as well. So your feelings are definitely justified, and hopefully this all works out, because the way your mom treated you is completely unfair. Am I the jerk for not offering to split gas money on a road trip that I literally did not even want to go on? Because right now I feel bad and I seriously am not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. Okay, so last weekend, I, a 24-year-old female, got dragged into a spontaneous hiking trip with my friends who we will call Jason and Lily. And for reference, they are a couple. We were hanging out Friday night at their place, and I was already half dead from the work week, and I had way too much wine, so I just crashed on their couch. Saturday morning, I was super hungover, like dry mouth, hoodie over eyes level. All I wanted was some water, maybe a hash brown, and no human interaction. But Jason was already up and buzzing about this hike 4 hours away. And you know what? Lily was into it too. I said very clearly multiple times, I'm down to hang out, but I'm not hiking. I feel like crap. Well, they were like, oh, come on, you'll feel better once you're out there. It's mostly all flat. Well, I didn't push back hard enough, I guess, and I wasn't trying to be a buzzkill, because the next thing I know, we're in Jason's car, and I'm wedged in the back with my hood up and a bottle of Gatorade. Now, as a bit of a spoiler for the story, I never hiked. We got there, I walked to the trailhead, and then I just sat in the car with the windows cracked, reading a paperback I found in the back seat. They were gone for about 3 hours, and they came back very sweaty and glowing and very into themselves. I clapped politely, and then we drove back. Then, on the drive home, Jason says as casual as possible, so if you guys could Venmo me $30 for gas, that would be great. I then hesitantly said, wait, are you serious? I told him that I didn't really feel comfortable paying for a trip that I didn't want to go on and didn't even participate in. I said it as lightly as I could. Like I even added a half laugh so it didn't sound rude, but neither of them responded. It then got weirdly quiet after that. Like not just, oh, we're tired quiet, but stiff, polite quiet. Lily scrolled through Instagram the rest of the ride. Jason turned the music up and didn't really talk to me again until they dropped me off. I texted later that night just to say thanks for driving anyways, and Lily replied with a thumbs up emoji. Not even like a no problem or anything like that, but literally just a thumbs up. I've been replaying it in my head because I do get that gas isn't free, but also I didn't want to go. And I said that and I barely even left the car. I felt like I'd been held financially hostage for a vibe I wasn't part of. So seriously, am I the jerk for not paying gas money for a trip I got peer pressured into and didn't even get a chance to enjoy? Because right now I'm not sure what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. This honestly, in my opinion, is so toxic. You mean to tell me that they drag you along on this trip, leave you in the car with like nothing but like a cracked window and a book to read, and then when they're driving back expect you to pay for gas? Like no, I don't think so. That's not happening. That sounds like an awful plan, and I can't believe they try to like guilt trip you into doing that. I think in the long run, it would be good to like set boundaries more firmly and tell them, hey, if I don't want to do something, I'm not going to do it. And that probably could have helped you avoid this situation entirely, but in my opinion, these guys are absolutely the jerks, because they literally went on this hike and left you alone. And the fact that you didn't even participate in it, and you were basically just like an unwilling accomplice, in my opinion, is the biggest indication that this is nothing that you need to pay for. An entitled college student gets her laptop repaired, but then she never picks it up, forcing my brother to sell the item off as his policy pretty much dictates that he has to do so, resulting in this lady demanding $2,000 from my brother, even though she abandoned the product at his store. Here's what happened. Okay, so my brother Nate runs a shop in our small town that offers electronic repairs. Last year around June or July, this girl came into his shop needing her laptop repaired. It was an Alienware gaming laptop and it looked relatively new. The girl said that the battery wasn't charging anymore, and Nate said it looked like something was inserted into the charging port that shouldn't have been, and the port had been damaged. Nate told her that he would have to order parts and it might take a week or more before it's fixed. Now she said it was fine and started filling out all the paperwork. She then mentioned that she wouldn't be in town to pick it up, so the phone number was for her mother and she could come and get the laptop when it was ready. Nate said that that was fine and he would put a note in the system. Well, fast forward 3 weeks and it was finally fixed. Nate then goes to call the number and it says that the number has been disconnected. We live in a small town, but neither of us recognize this girl to try and track down her folks, so it just sat for a few months. Nate also has a policy in the contract that basically says that any repaired item not picked up within 90 days of completed service will be put up for sale by the business and can be sold. Well, Nate was generous and gave her an additional month before putting it up for sale. He then got an offer the same day he put it on the shelf, and it was sold as a refurbished item. Well, fast forward to last Thursday, and the girl finally showed up to get the laptop. She left to go to college and was in town for a long weekend and found out her mom never got the laptop. It turns out the girl wrote down the wrong number, and obviously she was pissed off that it got sold and is now demanding my brother to pay her $2,000 so that she can buy a new one. And we're honestly still blown away by her entitlement because this is truly ridiculous. Yeah, the lady in this story is a complete moron. Like, there's no way she didn't know about this policy. And the fact that she didn't follow up with her mom and be like, hey, did you pick up my laptop? Instead of waiting, I don't know, several months later, to me shows how irresponsible she is and how dumb she is. Because I don't know about you, but there's no way I would ever let a $2,000 laptop sit there and not have anybody pick it up, or at least account for it in some kind of way. I would be calling my mom constantly and be like, hey, can you check on that laptop or something like that? And it's also stupid that she completely wrote down the wrong number. It's like, my God, how is Nate or anybody at that store supposed to get anything to your mom? So yeah, that lady's a complete moron for doing this way, and she has no right to try and claim $2,000 from your brother, because this literally is her own fault since she's the one who put down the wrong phone number. An entitled Karen tries to claim that I'm pulling fire alarms on purpose, threatening to call the police in the process. But what she doesn't know is that I'm testing the alarms as a part of the fire alarm company that I work for. But no matter how hard I try to explain this to her, she simply refuses to listen. Here's what happened. So about a year ago, I was working as a helper for a fire alarm company that does testing and maintenance on fire alarm systems for industrial buildings, as well as warehouses and utility complexes. Usually in an office building setting, you wait till everyone goes home for the day, but some industries have multiple shifts and you have to just find the best time that you can test the alarms. Our usual inspection involves setting off all devices one at a time, making sure they report properly, and inspecting sprinkler pipes to make sure they're in good shape. As a courtesy, not only for the customers but for ourselves, we silence fire alarm panels before setting things off, and do one-time horn and strobe light check just to make sure those all work too, instead of having to hear them every time. After a while, you fall into a rhythm of hitting a smoke detector or a pull station, wait for your partner to confirm he got the signal, reset if applicable, and move on to the next thing. And you don't always inform those around you of what you're doing. Utilities and warehouses assume you know what you're doing, so they end up just not bothering you. But office buildings have a lot of noisy people in them. So I go up to the third floor of an office building, which was the halfway point for the building of 5 stories, when I casually stroll over to a pull station at the stairs and place my hand on the station. And this is right when I meet this entitled crazy Karen. I suddenly hear the shrill voice next to me as she says, "What do you think you're doing? You'll go to jail if you touch that." I was a bit taken aback by this lady in her 50s who looked like a twin to my old high school math teacher. I look at her and I say, "Oh, I'm with a fire alarm testing company. We have the horn silenced, and since we're doing our annual check of the system, I will only be a minute." I reach over to pull the station when she screeches at me again. And if there were words in this screech, I couldn't make them out. She moved between me and the pull station and seemed to be looking for something on me. "Where's your badge? Who let you in here?" I opened my mouth to say that I work for that company, but that's as far as I got. "So you don't work here. You can't just go into a strange office building and set off the alarm. That is illegal." She then called down the cubicles for someone to call security, which was not much in terms of security in the first place. It was just a guy with a company-issued flashlight and a 2-hour training video under his belt. I then respond by saying, "Well, for the next few days, I do work here as a contractor, checking your fire alarm panels. If you like, I'll come back to this floor after hours." And again, we worked odd hours to try and avoid getting in the customer or the company's way. She then says to me, "Get your site contractor up here right now. He'll know what's going on." Sure enough, a few minutes later of texting my partner to let him know I'll be delayed by a few minutes, my site contractor comes up, and before he can even ask what was going on, this crazy entitled Karen launched into her story. "This crazy kid came up here and was threatening to set off all the sprinklers," even though there were no sprinklers on this floor. She then said I was trying to get the fire department here on a false call and that they should call the police on me. My site contractor looked really annoyed. He said to her, "This is our fire alarm contractor. The same company checked our system last year." This entitled Karen said, "Well, that's not the guy from last year." I say to her, "Oh, you mean my partner?" I then pulled out my phone and I pulled up a picture of my coworker, and she gets this defensive look on her face as she realizes that she made a scene out of nothing. I still, to this day, don't know if she thought she was trying to save the company a headache or if she was just crazy, but she backed down and apologized to the site contractor, not even me. I tried to keep my customer service smile on my face, but everyone could tell it was fake and only put on for her benefit. I then say to her, "Here, I'll show you I'm legit." I reached to the pull station and I pulled the trigger down, causing her to jump in panic. No horns went off, no strobe lights flashed. I go on to say, "We disabled the horns this morning and we are in the middle of testing. We'll make sure not to make any noise till everyone goes home, I promise." Ever since then, I make sure to be obnoxiously obvious in what I'm doing, explaining to people what I was there for, to the point of being really annoying. But a few joking retellings of this interaction usually puts people at ease. As a contractor, yes, I do work here for the next few days, even if I don't work for you specifically. I'm in a different industry now, and it's about that time of year when that site gets their annual checks done. And it makes me wonder if someone else is gonna get bothered in the way that I did when I had a run-in with that crazy entitled Karen. I can't stand people who act like that. They see someone doing something that they're not familiar with, and they take it upon themselves to try and act like the hero of their story. That kind of main character syndrome is so obnoxious. Like, first off, you don't even know what that guy's doing. You're making assumptions about him standing next to a fire alarm, and instead of asking him, you basically decided to be like, "No, you gotta stop right now." Like, is your job that boring where you have to start bothering people around you just to be entertained? Because I've worked in that kind of environment, and dealing with a crazy Karen like that on a daily basis truly is obnoxious. They never have anything to do, they're always bored, and they're the type of person that would probably gossip about other people in the office. It's obnoxious, and you can clearly see her entitlement on full display. And the biggest proof of that is the fact that she didn't even apologize to this guy in the first place. She looked at the site contractor and said, "I'm sorry," instead of saying "I'm sorry" to the guy that she literally was bothering. But thankfully, she got put in her place pretty quickly, because her behavior was completely out of line, and she had no right to treat the original poster in the way that she did. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My fiance is spending a lot of time by herself with another classmate while she's at grad school, and despite my attempts to establish some kind of boundary, I'm being treated as if I don't want her to have any friends, as well as being treated like I'm the one manipulating her. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. I'm a 22-year-old male, and the woman I've been dating, who's also 22, struggles a lot with bipolar disorder and a handful of other issues. We've been going through a series of rough patches, and I want to get an opinion on things that are currently happening. To give a quick summary of our relationship, last year we moved to a new city together. I had to put my undergrad on hold for a semester due to transfer requirements, and instead I worked throughout the rest of the year while my girlfriend was starting grad school. Since this is a new city, we practically restarted our support systems, but she has a good number of family and cousins out here to support her. But for me, I don't have anybody except a few distant family friends. Recently, we've gotten into it over a situation where she went out with one of her classmates and then didn't get home until early in the morning. I was under the impression that it was a group outing, but when she got back, she told me it was just her and one of the guys kicking it together. She told me that they hung out at the park and they went to dinner, then to the bars, and that she would have been home a lot earlier if she wasn't drunk. When she got back home, I ended up explaining to her that this made me uncomfortable and that it's cool to have fun with friends, but the two of them literally have no business chilling until the morning when we're both in a relationship. She doubled down on her stance and told me that I was trying to be controlling when I asked that she refrain from going out with a guy alone at night till that late. After that, she just shut off and went to bed, sending me an apology over text messaging. When we finally started talking about it, she proceeded to explain that she feels lonely because we've been arguing a lot, and again, that it doesn't make things better that she barely has any friends at school. She just wants a companion, and this person was the first true friend that she felt she could make, and that she was never going to stop having friends. Truthfully, I understand where she's coming from about wanting friends, but I still think that the way she went about it was all wrong, and she would have freaked out if I was the one acting like this. I don't think it's correct to even call me insecure because she has a couple of guy friends, and I have no problem with any of this. I tried to flip the narrative around so that she could understand my point of view, but she replied that she wouldn't care because at the end of the day, she trusts me enough to let me do anything I want. But I honestly don't believe that. Additionally, this isn't the first time that I've told her about how her actions make me uncomfortable, specifically with how she still hung out with her ex-boyfriend and his friends when we we first started dating. Literally, she told me how this dude was all up in her face, talking about how he missed her and other stuff like that, but I was more so upset about how it was her last night in the city and she decided to hang out with a dude and her friends for the entire night and then came home early in the morning expecting me to be ready for her and on her last night to boot. So can I get some clarity on this situation? Because now I'm being labeled as insecure and manipulative because I didn't like the way that she went about things. I'm a firm believer in the idea that you can't stop people from cheating or doing what they want to do, but I'm just surprised my attempt at asking her to enforce boundaries was met with defensiveness and a closed mind. I really think that the way she's fighting me on this and everything else is manipulative, because if she ever came to me about someone, I would nip it in the bud. She wouldn't even be in a situation to feel like that. I came to her with the explanation that it makes me uncomfortable and it feels like she's putting all her energy into starting a relationship with this new classmate of hers rather than helping maintain and rebuild our current relationship. What should I do? I first want to start off with a little bit of clarification that the original poster made in their too long didn't read section of this post. They went on to clarify that this is actually their fiance and that their fiance is the one going out with a classmate all the way till early hours of the morning. And that, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate. It really does sound like she's getting a second boyfriend. Like, what is happening right now? With the added context of this person being engaged to their girlfriend, this is absolutely incredibly inappropriate. This would be inappropriate if they were still just boyfriend and girlfriend, but that added clarity just makes this a whole different issue. This is your future wife we're talking about, who is literally going out of her way to try and make a new relationship with this classmate. And instead of like making time for you, she's deciding to try and make time for this guy. That definitely is really sketchy, and I don't blame you for being upset. I don't think it's unreasonable for you to put up some kind of boundary or for you to explain that this is really inappropriate and she shouldn't be doing this. So no, you're not at fault in my opinion. Your fiance is being really sketchy right now, and you have every right to question her motives. Am I the jerk for banning my friend from my house because she smells bad? Here's what happened. So my friend by the name of Jackie, that's not her real name, has been friends with me since middle school, and now we're 19 years old. We've always hung out at each other's houses to watch shows together, but over the past year, she has started to smell really bad. She's aware of this, and obviously it is a bit embarrassing, but this is really bad body odor. I'm not sure how this happens though. She says that she showers every day and uses prescription deodorant, but the smell still wafts around us. Anyways, the other day she came over to watch our show that we want to watch, and I could smell her as soon as she stepped into the house. I ignored it as best as I could, and we just carried on as normal. After she left, my dad came home from work and immediately adopted a sour look on his face. He sniffed the air and went, "What smells like dirty gym socks in here?" Embarrassed, I said it was my friend Jackie who just left. My dad has a very sensitive nose and hates most perfumes and fragrant soaps because they just give him a headache. He went to sit on the couch where we were and got upset that the couch smelled so bad. His temper rose and he yelled out that he doesn't want her in the house anymore if she's gonna stink up the place. The next day, Jackie asked if she could come over again, to which I wasn't sure how to reply. So I just said that I was busy, but this kept going on, where she would ask to come over and I had to make up some excuse just to disguise what's actually happening. Finally, she got mad at me and asked why suddenly I could never have her over anymore when I could before. Look, there's no easy way to tell someone that they stink, but I figured she deserved to know the truth. So I finally said, "My dad doesn't want you at our place anymore since he says that you smell bad." She looked embarrassed and then asked me if I thought that she smelled bad, to which I nodded yes. She then got mad and said, "So what, I can never come over to your house again after 7 years? My parents already give me enough garbage about how I smell every day, and I'm doing everything I can about it. Now you're gonna do this too?" I offered that I could come over to her place and watch things there, but she refused since her family is a bit of a mess when the guests come over. She is still mad at me, and I feel like I ruined our friendship, even though I still want to be friends with her regardless of how she smells. So honestly, am I the jerk for informing my friend that she's not allowed at our house because she smells bad? Honestly, it sounds like your friend has some kind of medical issue. If she's showering every day and she uses prescription deodorant and she still smells so badly, then there might be something going on where she might need medical help. And the original poster has it right. There is no easy way to tell somebody that they smell bad, but at least you're good enough friends to be like, "Hey, you smell bad, that's why you can't come over." And unfortunately, this kind of sounds like this is the dad's rules. You can't really change that dynamic, and unfortunately, you you can't make him change his mind. Like, don't get me wrong, she is rightfully frustrated with what she's dealing with, but she shouldn't have taken it out on you. The circumstances really do suck, they really do, but it all comes back to the smell that she has. And it sounds like the dad doesn't hate her in general, he just doesn't like the fact that she smells bad. It literally has nothing to do with her personally. So hopefully this friendship can still be maintained, because honestly, I can completely understand if it falls apart. Telling someone that they smell bad and that that's the reason why they can't come over to your house would probably tear apart even the best of friends. But hopefully for your sake that doesn't happen and you're still able to have a good friendship with this person. Am I the jerk for finally saying no to my blind neighbor who is asking for too much from me and my wife and is absolutely taking advantage of our kindness? Here's what happened. So I moved around 5 months ago with my wife to a new apartment, and we have a blind neighbor who lives alone in front of our door. At the beginning, he was very kind. He introduced himself when we arrived, and a few weeks later, he brought a candle as a gift. After that, this neighbor started knocking on the door, asking for help in different situations, with his cell phone, his computer, or with the task of the course that he takes. In one of these situations, he told me that he needs to check his blood every day to control his diabetes, and he asked me if I could go every day in the morning to check his blood. I decided to accept, so my wife and I were going every day for 2 months to check his blood. But when we were there, suddenly other tasks appeared. He asked me to help him with tasks every day, and also he's very invasive, asking about all these tasks that my wife and me are doing every single day. He even asked us for our plans for the weekend, and if we don't have any plans, he'll ask us to come over and just do stuff for him. He started asking me for car rides, so I accepted twice, but I was starting to feel bothered. Days later, he asked for a ride again, and I finally managed to deny it. I work from home some days, so it's not because that I'm home that I'm free to answer him knocking on the door at any time. This whole situation and the increase of requests ended up irritating my wife and I a lot. And in the last week, in addition to going every day to check his blood, he still asked us to call him every day. We tried to send him text messages, and he started complaining that he would prefer phone calls. He was never ready for us. So besides checking his blood, we also had to wake him up every single day. So this Sunday we had enough, and I decided to stop this situation. So I told him that we started going to the gym in the morning and we couldn't go over to his house anymore. He put on an act saying he was very nervous with this situation, but I had read about manipulative people, and I think that's the case with him. He did everything to make me feel bad and guilty, and asked me to be there early to check his blood, even after I said it wasn't possible. So I said no again, and after that he said, "I can pay you," and I told him that I already have a job, and it sounded offensive to me that he said that, because we never charged him a penny in these 2 months of helping him. I left there relieved for having managed to say no, and I thought he would rethink his actions, but in the same day, he knocked on my door again, asking for help with his cell phone. I'm tired of feeling trapped in my own home, and I'm getting to the point of asking him not to knock on my door or call me anymore. I understand that he's blind, and he has limitations, but here in California, the government gives money and assistance for these people. Like, he has someone who goes to his house and helps him clean and do other daily activities. My plan is to stop having contact with him, and if he knocks on my door again, I'll ask him not to do it anymore, and for him to send text messages or an audio message if he needs something. So am I the jerk for saying no to my blind neighbor after he started demanding a lot? What should I do? You are absolutely not the jerk. This guy is honestly being super creepy, and I'm honestly blown away that you said yes to checking his blood every morning. That is so sketchy, and that could have ended very badly for you and your wife. Like, imagine if something went wrong. You don't think he's gonna blame you and your wife on his diabetes not being in check? Like, you're the ones checking his blood for the past 2 months. Who's to say he wouldn't pin that on you if something went wrong? And also, you've got it right. He has somebody who can help him out on his daily efforts. He receives assistance from the state. So you absolutely have no obligation to help him out in the slightest. And let me take this even a step further. If I was in your shoes, I would go over to his house right away and tell him straight up that I will no longer be available to help him out around the house. I would explain my feelings on the matter and say that we can still be good neighbors, but I am unavailable to be your personal assistant. Like, this guy has someone for that specifically. There is someone that can help him take care of his needs and help him out in that area. And frankly, it is not your responsibility or your possible liability to take care of his everyday needs. I don't think that's you being the jerk in the slightest, and if he's willing to pay you for helping him out, then he absolutely can pay an actual professional to assist him with his needs. Because at the end of the day, you are not a nurse and you're not a caretaker, and you should not be guilt-tripped into helping somebody out. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend that using her GPS skills instead of a navigation app always gets us lost? Here's what happened. Okay, so my girlfriend and I often go on road trips together. No matter how many times I suggest using our smartphones and navigation apps, she says she has fantastic GPS skills personally. The reality is we end up taking wrong turns, getting lost, or becoming late to our destination almost every time. So recently, we went on a trip to a national park 3 hours away, and she insisted on navigating us to our destination. Midway through though, we were so lost once again, which led to a lot of frustration for the both of us. When I brought up using Google Maps or something like that, she then goes off on how technology can't always be trusted, and she loves figuring out roads like a puzzle. By this point, I was fed up, and I told her that her navigation skills were awful, and that she got us lost every time. She then got super upset and said I was demeaning her abilities. So honestly, am I the jerk for being real about her navigation skills, as well as telling her that we should have used my phone? First off, this is hilarious to me. She really wants to use travel time as like some puzzle opportunity. Like really? I don't want to solve a puzzle. I just want to get through this national park and not be completely lost for 4 hours. Is that honestly way too much to ask? Like I can't really think I'm the bad guy here, right? And also, what is she talking about you can't trust technology? Like in this case, I'm absolutely going to trust Google Maps. Google Maps is way smarter than my girlfriend in this situation. Like if she was around her hometown or where you guys reside, I would then be more understanding of her knowing her way around town. But this is a place she's never been to before. She's trying to seriously act like, oh man, I can get wherever I need to. I have inbuilt GPS skills that are better than Google Maps. But in reality, she absolutely doesn't. If anything, she's just getting you lost, and that is super obnoxious. So no, you are not the jerk in this situation. Your girlfriend's being weird, and the fact that she got upset over this of all things, in and of itself is honestly really funny. My entitled stepdad took away my door to my room in the house, claiming that I deserved this kind of treatment and replaced it with a curtain. So I ended up getting revenge by taking away his door and doing the exact same thing to his room. Here's what happened. So my parents split up when I was 12 years old as a result of my mom's infidelity. I was definitely on my dad's side. However, my mom's house was closer to my school, so I had to stick with it. I would see my dad on weekends, but they both agreed I had to stay with my mom in the school week. My mom met this guy by the name of Henry a couple of years ago, and they got married. Henry is not his real name. I think their relationship is really gross. He's 15 years older than her, and he makes my mom happy, so I can't really do anything about it. But he has made my life a living nightmare. There's no mutual respect between us, and I keep out of his way, and he keeps out of mine. I think he has OCD or something like that, because everything has to be clean and out of sight all of the time. If I leave any pans after I cook on the side because I'm eating my hot food and intend to wash them right afterwards, I have to stop eating and clean them, and then my dinner goes cold. If I leave a book in the living room, I have to immediately put it away. If I make a cup of tea, I have to wipe down the surface. I don't spill the sugar, I don't spill any milk, but the surface was technically used, so it needs to be cleaned. God forbid the house doesn't look like a showroom. My mom follows his rules, but I hate them. I'm not even untidy. I just don't want to clean things when they don't need to be. My room had a door, so I left any books or paper out after studying, or like an empty mug, and he couldn't see them, so it wasn't a problem. That is, until he knocked on my door one time and started making me clean my room when it's not even messy, and would inspect it and make me do it again even if he didn't like it. Last weekend, he decided to replace my door with a curtain so he could just pull it and see if there was any mess. He said I deserved it for being so unclean. So today, I got a friend of mine to swing by, and we unscrewed my parents' door and put up a curtain while they were away grocery shopping. He helped me lift my bed, which is where I'm keeping the door. As I expected, the room was bare. Everything was behind closet doors, so I figured that if I don't have a door as an adult, neither should they. My stepdad then went mental, demanding me to reinstall the door, but I refused. I said that if I can't have one, neither can he. So now I have no curtain. I don't mind, I just stand by the wall to change, and they haven't grounded me or taken anything too important since my dad buys me things. My dad caught wind of what I did, and while he thought it was funny, he said that it was their house, so I need to give them the door back. What should I do? First off, this Henry guy sounds like an absolute control freak, and he really does sound like a major weirdo. Like personally, I don't think it's it's that important to clean everything at the drop of a hat. And I mean like right away, like right after you're done using it. That's honestly obnoxious, and this guy sounds incredibly weird in that regard. Also, it was incredibly rude for him to take away your door like that. That is a messed up thing to do, and that's really creepy. There is literally no excuse for that, especially since you are an adult. The original poster is 18 years old. This also kind of makes me think, like, why are you still at that house in the first place? You're clearly on your dad's side and you're now an adult, so you really can decide where you do and don't want to live. So I'm personally surprised that you haven't made the steps necessary to go ahead and push for moving in with your dad. I mean, if I was in your shoes, that's what I would definitely do. That's just me. So while personally, I probably wouldn't have stolen this guy's door, and I probably would have gone a different route of getting out of that house, I think the fact that you did send a very clear message that this guy's a weirdo and you're absolutely not going to be treated that way. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Am I the jerk for not letting my friends move into my house? Here's what happened. So I'm a 20-year-old female, and I had a rather difficult upbringing. I had a single mom, an absent father, and I lived below the poverty line, so most of my life was absolute garbage. When my uncle on my dad's side found out that I existed last year, he purchased a house for me in the city that I live in to essentially make up for my dad being a piece of garbage. I also live in Ireland, where there's a major housing crisis going on. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath, but I turned the living room into my bedroom, mostly because I'm lazy and I don't want to go up and down stairs all the time. I'm really proud of how I've decorated it. I've kept it clean and I've managed all the bills by myself for the last year. I'm also grateful that I won't have to struggle to find affordable rent like a lot of my friends have to do. The issue I'm having is that 4 of my friends, 2 couples, are currently being evicted from their house before the year is out and are struggling to find places to rent. I love these 4 people more than anything, but they are sloppy and they have a tendency to host after parties and stuff like that. Their current house has bottles and cans everywhere, dishes are never cleaned, and they somehow have a slug problem. I let a 5th friend who was having some serious financial trouble move in with me because she needed the help and she's cleaner and much calmer. The 4 friends being evicted caught wind of all of this, and knowing I do technically have 2 free bedrooms, asked if they could move in as well when their lease is up. I said to them no, because I do not want 6 people living in my house, especially people who are not properly house trained and will absolutely disrupt my current lifestyle. I don't want to have my space invaded so much because honestly it's mine and I want to keep it mine. I told them I won't let them move in with me unless they actually end up sleeping on the streets, and even then I would have my reservations. The 4 friends think that I'm being a jerk, but I don't think I am because it's my house and I decide who gets to live here. They're all not talking to me now, and I'm now honestly not sure what to do. First off, you are not the jerk. You know exactly how these people live, and it's smart of you to say, you know what, you're not going to live in my house. They put bottles everywhere, they never clean up after themselves, and they have pest problems that they obviously don't want to resolve. Like, why on earth would anybody want to deal with that in your home? I think it's very kind of you to let that 5th friend move in with you, but you said it yourself. They clean up after themselves and they respect your property. Can you imagine letting all 4 of those friends in and then suddenly they just completely destroy your place? Then you would have to evict them and then they would really hate you. So honestly, you're not the jerk in this situation, because if I had friends who were this messy and who were this notorious for just destroying properties, there's no way I would let them move into my house. Am I the jerk for getting upset with my roommate after they allowed a homeless man to sleep in my bed? Here's what happened. So I'm a 24-year-old female and I live with my housemate by the name of Sarah. Sarah is not her real name. Sarah and I aren't very close, and we will only talk if I run into her in our shared spaces, including our living rooms and the kitchen. Sarah told me a while back that she befriended a homeless man by the name of John. John is also not his real name. She used to give him spare change and started to cook for him, just so he would have something to eat. And you know what? That is completely her business. However, last month, she gave him our address and told him that he can stop by whenever he wants to pick up food. And she also didn't tell me this until I found out as he was ringing the doorbell, which has a camera that alerts your phone if someone comes over. Now, I don't normally check as I am at work most days, and most alerts are just someone walking by. I am only in the house to sleep or on my days off. Sarah knows that if I have 2 or more days off, I usually just go see my parents who live in the same city, but it is a long commute, so it's not feasible every day. I had a parcel coming last week, so I did check the phone alert and I saw John at our door. She has shown me pictures of him, so I knew it was him, and I was angry she had given our location to a stranger. her. I confronted her over this as I felt that this was unsafe, and it made me incredibly uncomfortable that he knows our address. She told me that he's only there to eat food and stays in the kitchen. Sarah argued that I have friends over all the time too, and that I'm judging him for being homeless. I just let it go, but told her that I don't want him to be anywhere near my room. Well, I went home for 3 days, and I usually go straight from my parents to work, but I came last night around 11 o'clock p.m. as I was scheduled to come in a lot earlier for work. Well, wouldn't you guess it, I found John was sleeping in my bed. We have a single bed each, and I screamed, waking up John and Sarah. I told him if he didn't get out right now, I would call the police for trespassing. John left, and somehow Sarah is now angry at me and will not speak to me. So honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk for being upset with my housemate for allowing a homeless man to sleep in my bed? This is honestly crazy to me. Your roommate is an absolute piece of garbage. Like seriously, she let some stranger sleep in your bed. Like if she really wanted this guy to get someplace to sleep, she should have been like, oh, don't sleep in my roommate's bed. That would be obnoxious and rude. Sleep in my bed instead, and I'll sleep on the couch. Or something like that. What in the world was she thinking? I would be so angry if I found another person I didn't know literally sleeping in my bed. Homeless man or not. It could be anybody and I would still be so upset. So no, you are not the jerk. If I was in your shoes, I would be going straight to the landlord. There is no way I would let this slide. This is such an obvious disrespect of your boundaries, as well as your right to privacy. Like, you don't know this guy. What if you started bringing somebody home and said, oh, don't worry, just sleep in Sarah's bed. She'll be fine with it. Like, no, are you kidding me? That's insane to me. So hopefully you're able to get out of there, or at least put a deadbolt on your door, because what Sarah seriously just did was insane. And you absolutely do not deserve to live in that kind of environment. Am I the jerk for refusing to take down my doorbell camera just to make my new neighbors feel more comfortable? Here's what happened. So to start things out, I live in an urban US city in a neighborhood that is somewhat notorious for being a seedy part of town. When I first moved to this city, I couldn't afford to live in one of the safer neighborhoods, so I found an apartment building that seemingly offered a lot of security, but was in a more affordable neighborhood. It didn't take long for me to realize that our building's security is mostly a joke. I can't go into specifics about what has happened since I moved in without this post getting flagged for a rule violation, but I will say that multiple people have passed away in this building. My partner and I have already decided to move out of the city because I'm currently pregnant with our first child, and we want to live somewhere more family friendly, and right now we are currently 8 days from moving day. In the meantime, we installed a Ring doorbell camera to the front of our apartment door, and this was all to reduce the risk of being targeted for a break-in or a push-in. We've had it up for a couple of months now, and overall haven't had any issues. Well, that is until now. Yesterday, new tenants moved into the apartment directly across from ours. Within an hour or two of moving into their unit, they knocked on our front door and told us to take down our doorbell camera. They argue that because their front door is in the frame, the camera is an invasion of their privacy. I immediately refused and told them that given the high crime in this neighborhood and building, we would be leaving it up for our own safety. I told them about the different incidents that have happened just since I moved in, but they honestly didn't care. I mentioned that one of the reasons we had it was so we could turn the footage over to the police if anything were to happen to our unit or within view of our camera, and they became even more insistent that we take it down. Again, I refused, and they said that they would follow up with the property manager. I talked about it with my partner, and he is in agreement that we're not taking it down, but I also spoke to a friend of mine who lives in the building, and she pointed out that since we're moving out in a week, I should have just taken it down to avoid argument. I'm going to have to take it down anyways when we move out, so what difference would a few days make? But because I refused to take it down and argue with them about it, I've now potentially left them with a negative impression of their neighbors, which isn't fair to the rest of the building since we're only going to be their neighbors for another week. I felt good about my decision to keep it up after talking about it with my partner, but after talking to my friend in the building, I'm having some doubts. Maybe I should just take it down early to avoid any unnecessary drama this close to us moving out, but I also have to think about my family's safety above everyone else. So am I the jerk for refusing to take down my doorbell camera just to make my new neighbors comfortable? As someone who has lived in seedy areas, no, you are not the jerk. First off, your friend's an idiot. They don't know what they're talking about. If they really think you having a camera up is gonna make them look bad, well, guess what? You live in a crappy apartment complex. People have passed away here, and from the sounds of it, it seems like a lot of sketchy stuff happens already. So for them to be like, oh man, your camera's making us all look bad, bad. Well, guess what, genius? This entire apartment complex makes us all look bad. Like, why do they have such loyalty to such a sketchy area? I mean, wouldn't you want to try and move out of this apartment complex? Because from the sounds of it, this place sucks. And it sounds like people could break in or push your door in just to try and rob you blind. And why would your neighbor come over and be like, oh, you need to take the doorbell camera down? Like, what do they clearly not want on camera that they're obviously gonna try to do? It sounds like they might be some of the sketchy people moving in who don't want a live recording of said sketchy stuff they're gonna try and pull off at their house. So personally, if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would take that camera down. Not only am I gonna keep it there throughout the entirety of my move, but once everything's out of my apartment, and I mean everything, only then will I step up and say, okay, now I'm gonna take this down. Because in my opinion, you've got to think about yourself and your family first. And if people seriously don't like it, well, then they're just gonna have to deal with it. Today, I'm gonna break up with my boyfriend because his mother was stealing my clothing on top of several other sketchy things, which has honestly all been the last straw in this relationship. Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old female and I live with my boyfriend who's 27 years old, and we live in the same town as his mother. We've been living together for almost a year and our lease is up next month. And for me, I am absolutely not going to resign. From the very get-go, this whole living situation has been nothing less than horrific, and I cannot wait to get out of this nightmare. My boyfriend and his mother are very codependent. The first couple of months were littered with surprise visits, as well as calls and FaceTimes all around the clock. She is a very dominant human being. And then at the midpoint of us living there, he gave her a key to the house. I work from home, but my boyfriend has to go in office, so I was always home alone with her whenever she decided to make herself at home. I have to spend time during work hosting her, and it's honestly tiring when it's so often and the apartment is so small. She comes to clean our apartment, make us dinner, pack lunches, as well as do my laundry. Yes, you heard me correctly, my laundry. I don't want anyone seeing my underwear, but maybe that's just me. Sometimes she'll come over just to read or watch television and then wait for my boyfriend to come home. I was, until late, teetering on the edge of saying, well, should I just end this? Should I break up with him and move on? But this recent event is my last straw. For months, I have noticed that some of my favorite clothes go missing and then reappear in my closet. I never thought too much on it since I'd always find them again, but I now know where they've been going. His mother changed her profile photo on Facebook, and lo and behold, she's wearing my jacket. How do I know this? Well, I made the jacket by hand. When I brought this up to him, he told me it wasn't a big deal. It's his mom, so I can trust her with my stuff. When I tried bringing it up to his mother, she absolutely gaslit me. She said she always asked to borrow my stuff, and that maybe I just wasn't paying attention to her when she asked me. I am now officially fed up. I will not live my life consumed with her constant presence, and I will not marry a man who basically still breastfeeds. When he comes home from work today, I'm ending things, and I already know that I'm dodging getting hit by the biggest train of my life. Wow, what an insane situation. Here you are just trying to live your life and, I don't know, work for a living, and this lady's coming into your house after your stupid boyfriend gave her a key to your place. Like, seriously, the apartment is already small enough. The last thing you need is having this lady bouncing around all day, every day, bothering you and waiting for your boyfriend constantly. Like, what is wrong with your boyfriend? Is he seriously that delusional that he doesn't see that this is really inappropriate? Like, what she's doing is really just putting everybody out? And not to mention the fact that she stole a handmade jacket that you made. This is your creation, and this lady's walking around like, oh, I asked you to borrow this. Like, no, you didn't. You straight up stole it from me. This is probably why she's doing your laundry as well. She saw all your beautiful clothing and she thought to herself, oh, I could take some of this. Like, what a psychopath. What is wrong with this lady? I can't imagine living in this kind of situation. This honestly must have been miserable. And it really didn't need to be like this from the beginning. Your boyfriend is 27 years old. He seriously doesn't want some kind of space from his weird mother. Honestly, I hope this all goes well for you. This sounds incredibly obnoxious, and seriously, you deserve much better out of a relationship than a boyfriend who is very clearly still attached to his mother's hip. Am I the jerk for eating rabbit meat near my friend, as well as allegedly forcing her to be near it after her pet rabbit passed away recently? Here's what happened. So to start things out, my friends and I had a day out at the beach on a Saturday. We each brought our own lunch plus barbecue stuff for dinner, as well as snacks to share throughout the day. The problem central to my posting this was my lunch. I brought over leftover rabbit curry and rice, and in my cuisine, we either grill rabbit meat or make it into a curry. One of my friends said it looks very good and asked for a taste. I told her it was rabbit, and she said that she didn't want it anymore. After she said that, one of the other girls said that she'd like to taste some because she's never had rabbit before, so I gave her some and she really liked it. But my friend started saying she was taken aback by the rabbit meat because she lost her pet rabbit recently, so she wasn't mentally prepared to face someone eating it. She was also upset that I was passing it around, even though I only gave it to one person that wanted it, like it's some sort of delicacy, when the rabbit could have been someone's pet, even though it definitely wasn't. I said I've been eating rabbit ever since I was a kid, and it's quite a normal dish from where I'm from. It's not a delicacy in the slightest. We eventually moved past the topic, but the mood was still a bit off. She only spoke one-liners to me for the rest of the day. I messaged her yesterday, and she said that she's upset with me because I doubled down and said rabbit is a normal thing to eat instead of sympathizing with her. I really just think she's upset about her rabbit passing away, but I don't want to act like I did something horrible when I absolutely didn't. So honestly, am I the jerk for eating rabbit meat at a friend outing, all because my friend had their pet rabbit pass away recently? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk in this situation. She's upset about her pet passing away, but what she said was pretty ridiculous. Like, no, that rabbit was not anybody's pet. It was meant for food, and you didn't bring it to this friend outing on purpose just to pass it around to your friends. Like, she seriously was not rubbing anything in this person's face, and they were just being ridiculous. Like, if I had a pet chicken and someone started eating chicken, I wouldn't be like, wow, I had a pet chicken, how could you do this to me? Like, no, clearly I'm just grieving the loss of my animal, and what you're eating for lunch has nothing to do with my problems. And the same goes for you. Your friend is being an absolute weirdo, and this has nothing to do with you. Like, think about her reaction here. Instead of dropping this like a rational human being, she decided to double down and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you wouldn't sympathize with me. Basically trying to guilt trip this person for eating food. Like, seriously, get a grip. The rabbit you were eating was not this person's pet, and it's incredibly weird and toxic for her to be like, oh my gosh, I lost a pet rabbit, and now you're eating a rabbit at our lunch. This must be the same thing. Like, no, this is not the same thing, and the way you're acting right now is really cringy and honestly just embarrassing. So I would not worry about this person in the slightest. She's being a weirdo for trying to guilt trip you in this regard, and honestly, if there's anybody in this situation who has a problem going on in their life, it's the lady who's guilt tripping people for eating lunch, and it definitely is not you in the slightest. My entitled supervisor tries to micromanage every aspect of my life in the office, so I decide to maliciously comply, causing our entire section to fall behind on productivity, eventually leading to my supervisor to be questioned about how good she is at her job. And I've never been happier to get revenge on a coworker. Here's what happened. Back in 2010, I was working in a training management area within a government department. The job was fairly easy for me. When my original supervisor went on an extended leave, I ended up getting a new supervisor that we will call Agatha. Agatha is not her real name. Almost immediately, Agatha started to micromanage me even though she didn't really know my job that well, or even half of what my role entailed. Now, I will say that I didn't particularly like Agatha as a person, but I tried to get along with her, even when her management style started to show. In hindsight, I should have worked some internal politics to try and be removed from the area, but hey, no one said I was smart at 19. The section started to have some underlying tension until one day she called me into a meeting and, just to make a long story short, said the following magic words: "You need to do what I tell you to do and not what you think you need to do." She even followed it up by emailing me words to the exact same effect. Now, I did two things on the heels of that meeting. Firstly, I printed out the email to keep in my bag, as well as my drawer, my pocket, and on my wall. And secondly, I started to do what she said and only what she said. At first, she would just tell me the jobs that needed completing, but she only got worse when she noticed the work wasn't getting done and started to tell me how to do things. Again, I complied and only did exactly what she told me to do, as well as how she told me to do it. If she missed a step in her instructions, I would either skip it if I could move on, or ask her to explain again as I couldn't figure it out. I was a really good employee. I even went out of my way to start asking her what I should be doing and how. And this was after every single task. If she wasn't in the area, which was very common, I would just wait for her to come back. If she wanted to micromanage me, I would make her work for it. She was getting nothing done. We were getting further and further behind, and this went on for about a month. The reputation of our section was getting tanked internally and externally. This is when Michelle enters the scene, who is Agatha's boss. She noticed all my questions and the general drop in productivity, as well as morale and reputation. She pulled me aside and asked me what was happening, considering I am normally so competent, as as well as very efficient, and I don't normally ask many questions about how to do the work. Now, as a side note, Michelle was a fantastic boss, and generally preferred a more hands-off approach when she could. She clearly was giving Agatha enough rope to make either a ladder or something else, if you know what I mean. I explained to Michelle how Agatha was managing me, and I was trying to help her management style by leaning into it more. I also showed her Agatha's email. At this point, I estimated I could get everything caught up in about a week without working any extended hours if things changed. Michelle, being a good boss, simply asked what it would take for me to get back to working the way I always have. I only asked to not be managed by Agatha anymore. I could have been much more insidious with my request, but I only wanted to be left alone to do my work. To my surprise, it worked. I immediately started reporting directly to Michelle. I got the work caught up in 3 days, surpassing even my own expectations. As for Agatha, she started to have her work examined a lot more closely, including her overall output, since I found out later she was trying to blame me for her low work output overall. It turned out that I was in fact the solution. Michelle ended up sharing Agatha's workload between the two of us, and we didn't really notice much difference. Agatha, however, did notice a difference, as she shuffled into another area of the department, one with a lot less responsibility, as well as an area with a lot less promotion opportunity. I ran into Agatha again after I had moved around the country a few times, and I ended up back in the same office, but in a different section. Agatha was still in the same awful position. Same level, too. Her personal reputation was so bad that only a handful of people would actually want to work with her. So overall, it felt good to know how stuck she was, and presumably still is. I honestly can't stand when someone micromanages me. Like, if I'm doing a job, I want you to leave me alone and let me do it. If I'm making a mistake, that's when I absolutely want to be corrected. I want to do things right. I don't want to be wrong about it, and I don't want to mess things up for everybody else. So when I see someone like Agatha come around and try and boss people around and make people feel miserable, that honestly really is upsetting. So good for the original poster for basically getting back at this lady. Thankfully, you had a good boss in Michelle who could clearly take care of the situation, and it's really cool that they knew your value as a worker. And hopefully you never have to deal with Agatha ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked down below in the description. Am I the jerk for asking my girlfriend not to take so many photos when we are out doing stuff together? Here's what happened. So my girlfriend recently became interested in photography after being gifted a camera. At first I thought this was great. She found a new hobby and I was supportive of it. But things have gotten a bit much. Whenever we go out anywhere, she brings her camera and stops every minute to take photos of flowers, people's houses, street lamps, rubbish on the ground, literally anything. It gets annoying because I always have to wait for her to stop taking photos. Or if I walk on eventually, she acts like she doesn't even notice and makes no effort to walk alongside me. It's also pretty embarrassing when she stood outside someone's house for 5 minutes trying to get a perfect shot. Like, if someone did that outside my house, I would find it creepy or think that they're planning on robbing me. She also is trying out street photography where you take candid shots of people. I understand it's a legitimate type of photography, but it makes me uncomfortable when she takes photos of random strangers when she's with me. She is not very discreet about it, and when I ask her if she's concerned about people knowing that she's taken their photo, she just says that she's legally allowed to do so. And while that may be so, I find it a bit rude or weird to do it without any permission, especially when she posts the photos on an Instagram account. I told my girlfriend what I thought the other day because I just wanted to run errands with her without always stopping, just so she could take some photo. I told her there's nothing wrong with her hobby, but that it's getting a bit annoying when we are out together. She ended up getting really upset, saying she's found something that she's finally passionate about and wishes I took more of an interest in it. She also thought I was mocking her, which wasn't my intention at all. She is now being withdrawn and distant, and I feel I was a bit harsh. I don't want to stop her from doing something that she enjoys, and I don't want her to feel put down, but at the same time, it was just getting a bit frustrating. Am I being an unsupportive jerk here? What should I do? First and foremost, I don't think you're the jerk here. Your girlfriend is not only overreacting in this situation, but she's also violating people's privacy. Taking photos of people in public without them knowing about it is incredibly rude, and it's also incredibly creepy. I mean, just because it's legal doesn't mean that it's nice, and it's not legal in all places. And also, just because you're legally allowed to do something doesn't count as consent, which really marks this down personally as nefarious and creepy behavior. Like, you really shouldn't do that to people without their permission. And sure, this is a passion of hers, but you know what? That passion is driving having a wedge between you and your girlfriend. She is stopping literally for everything just to take photos. That has got to be obnoxious after a while, and on top of the fact that she's posting photos of people she doesn't know on an Instagram account that's dedicated to candid photos, overall is just incredibly weird to me. Like, how does she not see that that's really creepy? So honestly, you're not the jerk in this situation. Your girlfriend is taking her photography passion and going way too far with it, and it's better that you say something to her now instead of somebody yelling at her out in public when she's taking their picture without any permission. My boss demands to know where I am at all times no matter what's happening, so I decided to maliciously comply, and as a result, I made his life a living nightmare. Here's what happened. So this happened about 8 years ago, and this was 1 year into my first job, paid internship, and clerking gig. The firm that I worked for had a part-time program for law students so they could work and gain experience while in school, and this is very common in my country. I loved my job. I was very grateful for the opportunity to learn and grow, and I really enjoyed the work I performed. The thing was, I had classes both in the morning, afternoon, and night, and my school was in a different side of the city, about 8 miles away, that could turn into hours worth of traffic during rush hour in a city with 8 million inhabitants. So my day looked pretty hectic. In the morning, I would get ready to drive to school, and I would alternate between having class, going to work, and then going back to classes. Then I would try to study for 1 hour after class, and this is all at the end of the day, and I would often eat while driving. During my first year in the program, I had more than proved myself and earned my place. I was that 19 or 20-year-old idiot, a type A overachiever that knew no boundaries. I had worked weekends, pulled all-nighters. Literally, I would leave school at 10 o'clock p.m. and then go back to work. I worked full-time in the summers without more pay, anything I had to do to keep the associates happy so they could keep teaching me all I needed to know. As I was wrapping my first anniversary there, the perfect storm of awful rolled around. On the academic front, I started a new semester, and twice a week in the mornings, I had a teacher who was awesome, but would finish class about 20 to 30 minutes late. On the work front, a new partner joined the firm. Let's call him Mr. Jerk, and kind of took over as an unofficial managing partner. He was the typical old-fashioned lawyer that really should be extinct by now. He could barely use Microsoft Word to type a contract and would pass out at the sight of an Excel spreadsheet. He had this weird obsession with punctuality while simultaneously being late to everything. Plus, he moronically believed that by having a bunch of people warming up chairs, he would magically make money. So instead of investing time on client development, he would just spend endless time and effort on bullying everyone around the office. To make matters worse, since other people spoke highly of me, he decided to pay special attention to me. Unsurprisingly, shortly after this guy joined up with us, the firm started struggling. Now, he could have tried to get new clients, send quotes by the deadline, and show up to meetings on time, but no, of course the firm was doing poorly because us clerks did not spend enough time warming up the chairs. So he became obsessed with us getting there by 10 o'clock in the morning, specifically me. The issue was that I could not get there by 10 because my teacher finished class late, and there was no way I could drive across the city in rush hour in 30 minutes. So Mr. Jerk called a meeting with all the clerks and yelled at me in front of everyone because I was apparently always late, more than twice a week. The fact that I had gotten a permission form from the program committee did not matter, nor did the fact that I was working 6 to 7 hours every day while I only had to work 5 hours did not matter either. And the fact that I would work weekends and late nights didn't matter as well. I tried to explain, but he would just keep yelling at me and would not let me talk. Having finally had enough, I left the conference room straight into the office of every member of the clerk program committee. I said the same speech as follows: I am late because I have class. I have proven my commitment to the firm, but my education is important too. If 30 minutes late twice a week is too big of an issue, feel free to fire me, but I am not leaving class early. Then I went to my desk to do my work. I guess the committee informed other partners, and word got around of what was going on, because as I was getting ready to leave for school, Mr. Jerk came fuming to my desk. He told me,
I know you're lying. From now on, I want to know where you are at all times. And if I catch that you are slacking off or lying, you are fired. And I will make sure that no one will ever hire you ever again.
So this is right when my malicious compliance comes in. The next day, I woke up extra early, about 5 o'clock in the morning sharp. I took a timestamp photo and I sent it to both his email and his phone, since I could not risk him not getting it and him not knowing where I was. I sent a timestamp photo every 5 minutes, captioning what I was doing like it was my own personal social media platform of one follower. The cherry on top was that my teacher had worked with Mr. Jerk in the past and obviously did not like him very much, so he let me take photos during the class and diligently send them to Mr. Jerk. I even went as far as taking a photo of the toilet door with the text using the bathroom and then sending all done with the toilet flushing as a picture. While driving, since traffic was really slow, I would send a photo and include how much I had moved during that time. Sometimes it was something absurd like 100 feet. As soon as I sent a photo of me at my desk, he shows up saying that he got the point and I could stop. A couple weeks later, he simply stopped bugging people and started working from home or locking himself in his office. My guess is that I'm not the only one to complain, and the other partner realized how dangerous he could be for the firm and finally asked him to back off. And I've never been happier to get back at someone in my life. Yeah, that guy sounds absolutely obnoxious. Can you imagine having somebody on your case all the time, trying to be like, oh yeah, you're lying, you're late because you're lazy, or something like that? That's so insane to me. Like, does he not understand that you barely are able to make it here on time as it is? You live in a city with 8 million people. Like, come on, it's hard to drive enough as it is, with even half that amount. So the fact that you decided to take this route and send him pictures every 5 minutes for the entire day leading up to going to work, honestly is really funny to me. This guy was being a complete jerk. He humiliated you in front of everybody in this legal firm, and he was obviously singling you out all because you were good at your job and you were going above and beyond to try and make a good impression. Like, seriously, this guy was a straight up jerk. So good for you for getting back at him, because the way he was acting was incredibly inappropriate, and you did not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not wanting to watch my nieces and nephews at my house specifically? Here's what happened. So I'm a 32-year-old male, and I've been with my girlfriend who's 29 for about 8 years. From the very beginning, we have been child-free. My girlfriend isn't a big fan of kids, and while I love being the fun uncle, I also love being able to give them back. For some background, my girlfriend is incredibly introverted and suffers from anxiety. Because of this, she is definitely a homebody and prefers hanging out at home with our 2 dogs. She likes things quiet and calm and definitely thinks of the house as her safe space, and I completely respect that. I watch my 2 nephews and my niece, ages 7, 5, and 3, once in a while for my sister and brother-in-law. I always go over to their house to watch the kids, partially because all their stuff and toys are there and it's just easier. And I also know that my girlfriend wouldn't enjoy having them over at the house. Plus, she didn't agree to watch them, so that wouldn't be fair for her at all. We've had some really lovely weather lately, and my sister and brother-in-law have been asking me to take the kids over to my place and watch them instead. They live in a townhome and don't have much of a yard, while we are pretty lucky and have a pretty large backyard. And I've also offered to take the kids to the park instead if they want some outside time. Neither my sister or brother-in-law like this very much. They say that they would rather have the kids in a safer, fenced-in yard to run around and play rather than a public park. It all came to a head though this past weekend. My brother-in-law called and asked if I was available to watch the kids. So I told him sure, that wouldn't be a problem at all. He politely at first asked if he could drop the kids off with me for a change. I told him no, I would come to them, and he got a little frustrated and said the kids really need some fresh air and to get their energy out. I said, okay, we can go to the park. But that's right when he exploded at me and told me I was a jerk for not letting the kids come over. He said, never mind, and that he didn't want me to watch them because I was too selfish. So now I'm just left scratching my head, and I honestly just need to know, am I the jerk for not wanting to watch my nieces and nephews at my house? I don't think you're the jerk at all. Why on earth is your brother-in-law suddenly gonna say, oh, we're gonna change it up, we're gonna bring him to your house? Like, that has never been a part of this schedule or anything that you guys have done ever. I mean, why is he gonna try and change that now on the fly? Especially when you've said in the past that no, you don't want to have them over, which doesn't even account for your girlfriend not wanting to watch them either. In my opinion, if anything, he's the one being selfish. He literally tried to force these kids on you all of a sudden and say, okay, they're going to your house. Like, that's not okay, and that's completely out of line. And that guy's reaction was so overblown. Like, seriously, you're gonna freak out and snap at him like that? And this is all over the original poster suggesting that they go to a park. I mean, it's not like the original poster's not gonna watch him. I'm sure he wouldn't even offer to take him there if it wasn't even just a little bit safe. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Your brother-in-law is seriously being crazy, and the fact that he would overreact like that is all you need to know about the the kind of guy he really is. My sister is literally parenting me all the time, refusing to take me to work sometimes when she needs to borrow the car, as well as checking over all of my social media posts, trying to make sure I don't post something that she wouldn't like. And at this point, I've had enough, and I seriously don't know what to do. So I'm home from college this summer, and I work full-time at a local grocery store to save money to move out. My parents leave for work during the day, and my sister and I have one car between the two of us. She insists on driving me to and from work each day, which is about 10 minutes away, because she says that if she needs to go out, then she can still do so, while I'm just at work all day, and the grocery store has everything I could need. My parents agree that this is better because she sometimes needs to go out during the day, and she likes visiting her friends. Honestly, I feel pretty embarrassed having my younger sister drop me off and pick me up from work. She's been pretty obsessed with her physical appearance lately, especially food and diet. It's to the point where she checks my bag every morning before driving me to work, and if she sees snacks that she doesn't approve of, she refuses to drive me to work. Sometimes I put stuff like an energy bar or crackers in there, but she only approves of vegetables and fruits, so I have no choice but to put away the unhealthy snacks just so I can get to work. Once I told her that I would just drive myself to work, and she flipped out because she says that it's her duty to drive me to work and that she needs the car some days. The most annoying part is that she acts like a snob because she is smarter than me. She graduated high school a year early because she skipped a grade in elementary school and I did not. She's going to a great university for aerospace engineering, and I also go there, but I'm an environmental science major. She brags that she does rocket science, while I'm doing 6th grade earth science. Right now, for example, she is already self-studying aerospace stuff and tries to explain it to me and my parents. None of us understand most of it, but when I don't understand something, she calls me her little 6th grade brother. I chose environmental science because it's something that I care about, not because I'm mentally incompetent. Well, both of us are going to the same college in the fall. She kept insisting that she visits my room and checks in on me regularly to make sure I'm eating healthily. My mom is on board with this plan because last year my roommate and I didn't cook the healthiest foods, and I gained a few pounds because of it. She also asked for my Instagram password because she doesn't want my post to embarrass her, and even cried when I didn't give it to her. Anyways, I got into a fight with my sister this morning because she didn't approve of a post I made on Instagram. She called me cringy and uncultured and said that she wouldn't drive me to work unless I deleted the post. I did not delete the post, and I just drove myself in the end. Well, my sister called my dad about it, who called me about an hour ago saying that my sister might need the car, so it was selfish of me to drive myself to work. I said that I felt micromanaged and parented by her, and explained how she was controlling my life subtly. My dad was clearly in a bad mood and said that he will have a talk with me tonight. What should I do? Your sister's being obnoxious, and she clearly does not respect your boundaries. First and foremost, there is no way she's going to be checking in on you at your room at college. You can literally lock that door and tell her to get lost. You absolutely have a right to privacy on that college campus, and she does not dictate what you can and cannot do. When it comes to the food and all this other stuff, I think you literally just need to explain to your dad that she is literally holding your job hostage and refusing to let you go to work unless you bend to her weird demands. Which, by the way, if there's anything that's cringy in this situation, it's her trying to dictate what food you can eat, as well as what posts you can put on Instagram. Like, seriously, she's acting insane. So if I was in your shoes, there's no way I would put up with that. I would draw a very clear line in the sand. I would say, hey, you're more than welcome to drive me to work, but you're not going to tell me what to do. I do not answer to you or anybody else. And you're also not going to monitor what I do on social media or what kind of food I eat. And when it comes to college, you're not going to come by my place. Like, if you just lay it out there as it is, clear as day, you can then at least let her know exactly where you stand, because the way she's acting is obnoxious, and no one deserves to get treated like that. A group of entitled Karens tried to rob my goodwill that I was working at, but after watching them try to steal merchandise, I not only confronted them about trying to steal from my store, but I banned them all from my store for life. Here's what happened. So today's tale of audacity comes once again from the halls of Goodwill Industries, the Valhalla of entitled jerks everywhere. I had just put out a new cart of items before the store opened, which is something I would usually do. I'm an early bird, and I truly love sorting through all the donations. I've been a junker since birth. Anyways, every morning I'd get in about an hour early, so I had the place to myself. I would bring my tea, sort out a new cart, and make sure there was new stuff out on the floor. This particular morning, there was a large cart of hats, men's men's hats, women's hats, all of various kinds. This will be important later. So I opened the store and went about my day. That is until this particular group of nasty old Karens came in. I had dealt with them on several occasions. They always came in a group and always had something to complain about, or were generally just a pain. And today would be one of their most offensive displays. So I stop what I'm doing and go behind the register so I can both keep an eye on them and not subject my employees to their nonsense. One of these wild Karens immediately goes for the hats, the very ones I just put out. I watch this grown woman in at least her 70s go through it, find one that she likes, and put it on her head, which is no big deal. I just figure that she's wearing it up to the register. So they go about their shopping, complaining about this and that and the other, saying stuff like,
"Where's the new stuff? Why don't you have this thing or that thing? Why don't you have a bathroom?"
All forms and manners of stupidity. Eventually, it leads up to checkout time. The first Karen checks out and complains about no senior discount, despite being told by me personally at least half a dozen times that we don't actually have that. Maybe she figures I'll magically find one someday. The next Karen goes through without any issue. Now comes the hat Karen. I ring her up, then I ask for the hat that she's wearing so I can ring it up as well. This old Karen has the audacity to say to me,
"Oh, this is my hat."
I look at her incredulously, and I ask her, "Really? So you wore that in, huh?" She says to me,
"Yes, I did, and I don't like what you're implying."
I say to her, "Oh, I'm not implying anything. I'm flat out telling you that you're a liar and a thief. I personally am the one that put that hat out for sale today before anyone else was even in here." The Karen then says,
"No, you're wrong. This is my hat."
with another one of the Karens chiming in and saying that she wore this to their house yesterday. I say to him, "You do know we have security cameras, right? Would you like to see when you put it on your head?" This Karen then doubles back. She says to me,
"Oh, I must have been confused. I have one just like it. How much could it really be anyways?"
I say it's $19.99 now. This Karen goes,
"What? You can't do that. Where's your manager?"
I pull my little name tag off and I show the Karen that in fact it says that I'm the manager. I say to her, "Unfortunately for you, I am the manager. Even more unfortunate, I literally watched you put it on your head. So now you're not buying any of this. You're banned from my store and I'll be reporting you to the main office." One of the other Karens screams at me and says that I can't do that, with this initial Karen saying,
"No, I need this stuff. You can't ban me."
So I look at the other Karen and I say, "Now you're both banned." Looking at the rest of the group, I say to them, "Would the rest of you like to join these two?" So they stood there, squawking like ducks for a few minutes until they realized I wasn't going to ring them up. Then the first two of the group started to speak up.
"Well, then we're not going to shop here either. I want a refund. You just lost some good customers."
I say to them, "No, I just lost a bunch of old you-know-whats who do nothing but complain. And unfortunately for you, all sales are final. There will be no refunds. Now either get out or I'll call the cops and trespass the bunch of you." They squeaked and squawked a bit more, and then they started to leave. However, we weren't done yet. The hat Karen tries to take the hat with her. I literally have to come around the counter and take it from her before she gets out the door. The hat Karen then shouts out that she's gonna sue me as well as this whole place for harassment. I then say to her, "Go right ahead and try and find a lawyer that will listen to an old bat like you. I'll be here if you do. Thanks for shopping at Goodwill, and please never come back to my store." Then I closed and locked the door and went and I ate my lunch. And you know what? I never heard anything about it ever again. What an awesome story. This guy did exactly what all of us wish we could do to any Karen coming into our store. I know for a fact that when I work customer service, I wish many times I could tell off customers like this, especially someone who's trying to blatantly steal. Like, are you serious? You're really gonna try and rob this store right in front of this guy who saw it happen? Like, that's ridiculous and that's so inappropriate. The original poster also goes on to say that the only reason they were able to get away with speaking to them like this was because they were the only person who could manage online sales. And that was for the entire region of stores. So they could literally get away with anything and no one was really going to complain, which basically gave him a license to talk back. So seriously, good for this original poster. These Karens absolutely had it coming, especially since they tried to rob Goodwill of all places. And honestly, with the way they were acting, they truly did deserve to get put in their place. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. An entitled couple demand my free barbecue for themselves, despite the fact that someone else had already claimed it and was on their way to my house to pick it up. But despite explaining that to them, they simply wouldn't take no for an answer. And now I'm not sure if I made made the right decision by giving it to this other person. Here's what happened. So this just happened 30 minutes ago. I had a barbecue and I posted to Facebook Marketplace for free. We're getting renovations done and our balcony will be replaced, so I couldn't keep it. Anyways, I got 104 messages for this thing. I messaged the very first person back and they said they would come and get it at 6 p.m. today. I spent the time cleaning it and bringing it downstairs to the parking garage, which by the way was not easy, and she eventually no-shows. Now when this happened, I was so annoyed, so I slapped a sign on it that said it was for free and I put it on the curb. I live on a quieter street, so I decided to message a few of the first responders and drop them a pin just to let them know that I put it on the curb and it's first come first serve. I go out 2 hours later and nobody has picked it up, so I open Facebook to let a few more people know when I see that one of them messaged me saying she's recently divorced with 2 kids and doesn't have a lot of money at the moment, and she's asking if I would be willing to hold the barbecue for 30 minutes while she drives there to go and pick it up. She says that she will get into her car this minute if I can hold the barbecue, so I agreed and pulled it into our parking garage out of sight of our street view. I put a sign on it for my neighbors just letting them know someone will be picking it up in 30 minutes, so please do not touch it. I did not bother messaging the people I sent the pin to because I thought a reasonable person would expect the barbecue to be gone off the curb after more than 2 hours, and to be honest, it's free, so I just don't really care that much. I go to check my mail and when I come back, there's a car in the parkade and 2 people unscrewing the sidearms. I asked them if one of them was Jane, who was the person I spoke to on Facebook, and they said no. So I then asked them why they're taking my barbecue apart, and the guy says I told him he could have it. I said I dropped a general pin to the curb and said first come first serve. I said it was no longer on the curb and therefore it's no longer available. It had already been 2.5 hours at this point, and the lady who said she's coming for it is only about 8 minutes away. I apologized to them and I explained the whole situation above, but he was not having it. He insists that he's here and now it's gonna be his. I told him that he's on my property and it belongs to me, and I'm saying that it's not his. I literally point out that he has entered our garage out of view of the street. He shows me that he messaged me to say okay, and I show him the 104 other messages I received about it because he won't believe that I didn't specifically invite him to my home and promise him a barbecue. I said that's not a confirmation and you knew that there was a chance that you would come here and there would be no barbecue. At this point, his wife says, "That's really bad business." But I respond by saying, "It's not business, it's a free barbecue." At this point, they start yelling at me and threatening me with karma. And honestly, thank God I live in a building with good security. I told them my karma was giving a barbecue to a struggling person for free, and it's bad karma on them to act like this over an honest mistake and a person who is just trying to do the right thing. At this point, my neighbors come out and he backs his car out. But when I say it's bad karma on them, he stops his car facing me, and there was honestly a moment I thought he might run me over. Anyways, these entitled people left, and 2 minutes later, the nicest person ever shows up, and me and my neighbor helped her take the barbecue apart and pack it to move. The whole time she's so grateful, and at the end she says to me, "I really believe in karma. Thank you so much for this, and I hope somebody pays it forward for you." So honestly, was I in the wrong here, or were these people just completely entitled? I get being annoyed, but that's the chance you take when it's first come first serve. What should I do? I honestly don't think you did anything wrong. That entitled couple was being incredibly entitled. They literally walked off the curb, saw this barbecue, and just started taking it apart. That, in my opinion, is not only very invasive, but they also could have gotten it wrong. They could have been accidentally taking apart someone else's barbecue. And you know what? It was a free barbecue. So for them to complain and be like, "Wow, we got here," after someone very clearly needed it much more, is really entitled in my opinion. So I would not worry about it. These people already radiate bad karma, and proof of that alone is seriously by the way they acted. My mother-in-law suddenly wants to come over and is refusing to tell us if she's sick, which is crucial information to protect my newborn child. And now I seriously don't know what to do. So my mother-in-law just came back from a trip abroad. Her flight was literally 2 days ago. She has a funeral in our area, so she told me that she will be visiting us today, literally giving us 1 day notice. I told my husband that his mother didn't even ask to come over. She just literally told me that she will be coming. We have had discussions about boundaries before, and I asked my husband previously to let his mother-in-law know that she has to ask before visiting and not just turn up, which she has done before. When we have visitors, we always ask if they are healthy. On top of having 3 small children, 4 years of age and under, wonder, we also have a newborn who also has low white blood cells, which most people know means that they are not great at fighting infections. My mother-in-law has had a particularly bad record of visiting us while she's sick, whether it's having stomach problems or colds or shingles or anything like that. When my husband asked her if she was healthy, she had a go at him, complaining that he always asks this and that his other brother who has a child doesn't ask her these questions, while also saying that our little boy is already sick with a stomach bug as it is. She went on, and my husband went on to explain himself. The short notice and not asking wasn't even discussed, but that question alone was problem enough. Today, my husband and I agreed about something unrelated, mainly because I am suffering from postpartum anxiety and I get very stressed about visitors, cleaning, and housing, so I was feeling heightened. And he actually said to me that it's my fault that his mom feels unwelcome because I'm putting things into his head that he's then putting on her. I am actually really bothered by this because he's had many problems setting boundaries with his parents, and I thought it was getting better, but because his mom had a go at him, suddenly he shouldn't be asking if she's healthy because it may upset her. To me and everyone else we've asked, it's very understandable why someone with a newborn would ask these questions. But my mother-in-law is very sensitive to being given boundaries and usually has a way of talking my husband into and around things. I'm honestly not sure what to do of how to address this, especially this comment from my husband. What should I do? Your husband is being absolutely ridiculous. How can he not understand that your newborn has a bad immune system? Like literally, they can get sick very easily and the worst could happen. How on earth can he not understand that he needs to know if his mom is sick or not? And you know what? She probably sprung this on you last second because she knew she could get past your husband. Not because she didn't know about your boundaries, but because she knew a way to get around them. For whatever reason, she doesn't want you to know whether or not she's sick. And that is really gross in my opinion. I mean, you have a newborn child whose body cannot handle getting sick. That is something that everybody needs to take seriously. And it's especially not helpful that your husband literally just doesn't care. He's only appealing to his mother who's clearly just manipulating him. So no, you didn't do anything wrong in this situation. Your husband's being an idiot and your mother-in-law is being incredibly selfish. Because before you know it, your kid's gonna get sick. And the only person to blame is gonna be your mother-in-law and your husband for letting it happen. Am I the jerk for telling my parents to get divorced in the middle of an airport? Here's what happened. So my family and I went to Italy this past week for a vacation. It was my parents, my 17-year-old sister, my aunt, my 27-year-old cousin, and it was mostly a good time. It was pretty hot out, but the art was cool and I was excited about that. Our flight home was 3 connecting flights: Venice to Montreal, Montreal to Toronto, and Toronto to my home city. That is a lot of flying. It was a 30-hour day. My aunt and cousin got on a different flight out of Venice since they both live further away. My parents have hated each other since I was 11 years old. They almost got divorced when I was 13, but changed their minds and will never let me forget that they stayed together for the kids, meaning that I'm the reason that they're so miserable, and they sure do love to tell me that all the time. Anyways, our flight delays, and we have to sprint through Montreal. Customs take forever, and my parents suck at technology. My dad snapped at my mom snapped back, my dad started flirting with the flight attendant and some other lady in the airport, and my mom shut down and almost didn't get on the flight home. And they had been screaming loudly at each other for everyone in the Toronto airport to hear. It was really embarrassing. I've been in and out of therapy for over a decade now, dealing with their garbage because they won't go, and I end up being the collateral every time they would fight in front of me. And this would happen my entire childhood. But while we were waiting to board, my dad starts chatting up some lady in front of my mom, who texts me the following message. She says to me, "If your boyfriend treats you badly, you can break up with him. I have no option like that. Dad is now enjoying his second conversation with a second single woman since we left Italy and hasn't had one polite conversation with me, just demeaning ones. I have no options like you did." And at this point, I finally snapped. I yelled at both of them by saying, "Stop acting like children. This is not appropriate to do in front of me and my sister. Either go to therapy or get divorced. I'm tired of being your collateral every time you are at each other's throats." After I said that, they both laid into me for embarrassing them, as if they weren't fully doing it themselves. I was on hour 30 of no sleep. I was hungry, and I was about to get on my 3rd flight of the night. I don't live with them, and I have my own place. But for the past year, anytime they do this garbage, I just get up and leave. Unfortunately, that was not possible in an airplane. They've both been laying into me for embarrassing and disrespecting them since the incident, and honestly, I don't know what to do. Maybe they need to get embarrassed in the airport. This garbage just can't be normal. But maybe I'm playing the victim like my mom says. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, I find it very comical that your mom and dad were trying to say that you embarrassed them. Because honestly, it's the other way around. Think about it for a second. Your dad is going around flirting with some of the flight attendants and other women in the airport, all right in front of your mother and you and your sister. Like, that is already incredibly weird and very sketchy. And also, I'm right there with you. If they really hate each other that much, why on earth are they sticking around? Why have they seriously decided to sacrifice their happiness just for the sake of kids who clearly hate them? Like, they're obviously doing things the wrong way, and they're basically trying to pin their terrible marriage on their children, and that's not fair at all. That literally is not their fault. It's also really sketchy how your mom's like, if you have a boyfriend, you can break up with him, and basically trying to go to you for some kind of solace about her failing marriage. Like, you are her child, you're not her therapist. This is so inappropriate, it's not even funny. And it also doesn't help that everybody is sleep deprived and hungry. I know personally I can handle not having food or sleep for a long time, but when you have hotheads like your mom and dad who snap at the drop of a hat, it makes it seem like you're walking on eggshells just to get things done. And that's not fair for you all in the slightest. So good for you for at least having a place to live, as well as putting your foot down and telling them to stop it, because the way they were acting in that airport was completely inappropriate. And honestly, someone had to say something sooner than later. Am I the jerk for putting realistic fake spiders all over my room to try and stop my cousins from barging in? Here's what happened. So my cousins by the name of Jason and Alan moved in earlier this year, along with my aunt, since she's been going through a divorce at the moment. Jason and Alan are not their real names. They are very rambunctious, which I guess is normal for little kids to an extent, but it's been getting very annoying because they keep barging into my room constantly. I've tried talking to them multiple times that I want space to be respected. I also talked to my aunt about it, but they keep doing it and she doesn't really enforce that boundary. They barge into my room whenever I'm tutoring as well. I put up a sign on the door saying to not come in because I'm tutoring a student, but they'll ignore it and sometimes come in 2 to 3 times during an hour-long tutoring session. These interruptions are very annoying and distracting to both me and the person I'm trying to tutor. I tried talking to my parents about it and the fact that my aunt isn't enforcing the boundary I set with my cousins, but they told me not to press my aunt about it because divorce is hard and they don't want her to become depressed. My parents also don't let me lock my door unless I'm getting dressed. If I try, my cousins will run to my parents and usually my dad will bang on the door until I open it up. They don't see my cousins barging in as a big deal since my tutoring is technically volunteer work for my school's honor society and it's not a real job in their eyes. Since my aunt and parents are refusing to really do anything, I've decided to start putting realistic fake spiders all over my room. I ordered some off of Amazon and also paid a friend who's into ceramics to make some. Like most people, my cousins hate spiders, and after a few days of discovering spiders on the doorknob and inside my room, my cousins now avoid my room like the plague. My parents got concerned that my room might actually be infested with spiders and wasn't happy when they realized the spiders were fake. I pointed out that I'm not breaking any rules and I got my cousins to avoid my room without making my aunt depressed by making her enforce the boundaries with my cousins. My parents told me that I was being mean to children whose parents just divorced, and I should be ashamed of myself for purposefully scaring them instead of being more patient. I feel I have a right to privacy, and when I'm tutoring my student, they also have a right to be in an uninterrupted session. But are my parents right? Am I actually the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I think that your parents are being absolutely ridiculous. Like seriously, you've asked them to step in, you've asked your cousins not to come into your room, and you've literally done everything you can do to keep them out. They're being annoying and they're interrupting what you're trying to do with your tutoring, which by the way, that is absolutely a job. Yeah, you're doing it for school hours and you're doing it as volunteer work, but it still requires a lot of work. So the fact that they're not respecting that is really toxic in my opinion. And those little cousins are really obnoxious. I think I would lose my mind if they seriously were acting like that. Your parents are being irrational and they're not listening to you, which is so bad. Like here you are trying to do something extra for school and they're just running to your dad and your dad's banging on your door anytime you lock it. Also, it's really weird that you can't lock your door. Like literally, that's the solution to this problem. It's not like you're hiding anything, and I'm assuming that you only lock it when you're trying to get stuff done. So you know what? I'm right there with you. If your parents aren't going to do anything about this, well then you can try and do something yourself. And that solution probably is just putting putting spiders up all over your room. If these fake spiders is what keeps these kids out, then fine, let's put them all over the place. Because they're honestly being obnoxious, and they're interrupting something that's important to you. And if I was in your shoes and I had no other options in front of me, this is absolutely something I would do. An entitled scam artist tries to trick me into joining his pyramid scheme. So I decide to get revenge, exposing him to the public for the fraud that he is, causing him to lose thousands of dollars in the process. And I've never been more satisfied to get back at someone for wasting my time. Here's what happened. About 6 or 7 months ago, I was trying to enlist in the military. I ended up not joining, but that's a story for another time. At this time, I was led to believe I was about 4 months away from leaving for boot camp. I was running out of savings, and I was needing a part-time job for some spending cash while I waited around for boot camp. So I did what any enterprising 20-something would do, and I searched Craigslist for jobs. I normally hate sales jobs, especially those based on commissions, but figured it would be a great way to earn some extra cash short term. I found a few job listings that looked promising and put out some applications. A few days later, I received a call from someone by the name of John. John is not their real name. He was opening up a new store and needed associates. He liked my resume and asked if I would be available for an interview on Friday morning. I was very upfront with him, and I let him know that the distance was a little bit more than I would normally drive for a retail job, and I asked what he was offering for an hourly rate, just so I could see if the drive was worth it. He told me they were planning on offering an hourly rate in the mid-teens, along with some kind of commission. It seemed like an okay deal, so I agreed to be there Friday at 8 o'clock in the morning. Friday arrives as a cold, rainy day. I wear a nice shirt and tie and drive in heavy traffic to the address John provided. I knew the area from a previous job and eventually found the strip mall I was looking for. However, I'm not seeing any signage for the company name that was listed. There is, however, just one empty space with no signage but 2 people inside. Okay, maybe they just haven't had the store set up yet. No big deal. I had arrived early, knowing how bad traffic can be in that area. While in my car, I witnessed a young lady in business casual dress remove a sign from the window stating retail space for rent. Okay, a little weird, but maybe it's the first day in the space. I walk in about 5 minutes early, and immediately my BS meter goes from yellow to the highest level. The tables are all simple plastic folding tables, the kind college kids would buy for beer pong while on a shopping trip to Target. The walls are plastered with laminated charts featuring a ton of dollar signs, smiling faces from stock photos, and an organizational chart showing an all too familiar shape. And it was right then that I realized I was signing up for a pyramid scheme. So I think to myself, okay, this sucks, but I might as well have fun for a while to wait out traffic going home. The young lady in the dress approaches me. She introduces herself as Sarah, also not her real name. She welcomed me to the company and asked me to have a seat. I sat at her supposed desk, which was just another plastic table, and she pretended to go through the paperwork. However, she was just really shuffling papers around. We get to chatting, and I ask her how long she's been working for John. She says that she's been his secretary for about 6 months and that I'm going to love it here. Eventually, a guy walks out of the back office. He's in his early 30s, clean cut, wearing an ill-fitted suit from JCPenney's. As he is walking over, all smiles, Sarah says, "Oh, Jacob, our newest recruit is here." The guy stops in his tracks and gives her a cold stare. "It's John, Sarah. We've been over this." He turns back to me and gives me his brightest, hard-to-find good work these days smile you could possibly give. John sits me down and welcomes me, saying they are going to start with a group interview and has me sit down in a circle of chairs. Eventually, more people come in and sit down. John gets up and begins to thank us all for coming out here. He tells us about an exciting opportunity at their new company. He pulls out a set of knives and explains how with his company, we can make as much money as we want, all while setting our own hours. He even pulls out a textbook, saying about how this company's revolutionary tactics have even been featured in college textbooks. He opened to a page, his hand covering parts of it, making sure we could all clearly see the words of the company in large letters on the page. It's sad to say it, but a lot of the other interviewees were very impressed by this fact. One pregnant girl seemed very excited that she could work around her pregnancy and upcoming birth. John was going on and on about how much money he's made and how hard workers will rise to the top pretty quickly. At this point, John said he needed to take a quick phone call and gave us 5 minutes to have some coffee and talk amongst ourselves. As he stepped away, he left the college textbook behind, which is a big mess up for him. So I pick it up and I find the earmarked page and I read it. And as I thought, it was all about pyramid schemes, and it had this company's name as one of the largest examples. It goes on to talk about how these are essentially scams and how they are not economically viable. So I decide to share this with all of the group. I explain how pyramid schemes work and how he's just trying to scam us. They seemed incredulous. So I said when John gets back to ask him what we need to pay just to get started. That finally got everyone to realize what was going on. John walks in a few minutes later, and one of the girls in the group asked John what we needed to get started. He said, well, all you need is your first set of knives to demonstrate. You can sell them directly, or have them order one and keep them as your demo kit. It doesn't matter. You just have to pay the startup fees for it. And that's when everything became a nightmare. One kid started to get up and tell him to get lost, swearing at him up and down, saying he's wasting our time and he's a jerk for trying to pull this garbage on us. The pregnant girl is crying because she thought she found a place that would allow her to work despite being pregnant. John is clearly confused and flustered, asking who told them all of this. When it becomes apparent I'm the wrench in the machine, John gets upset and starts telling me to leave. People are yelling at John, John is yelling at me, Sarah is trying to tell everyone she never met Jacob before today and didn't know what this BS was. Eventually, we all walked out, leaving John behind. As I'm walking to the door, I see leaning against the wall the retail space for rent sign, and I also see a phone number on there that you can call. As I get into my car, I dial the number. Eventually, I get through to a person, and I ask about the property for rent at the location of John's company. The nice lady on the phone apologized, saying they had just leased the property out. I asked if she knew how long the lease would be for, as I was really interested in the property. She said she wasn't sure, and that they hadn't done the official paperwork yet. They were on their way to the space to sign everything with the leaseholder in a few hours. I then told her everything that had just happened, about John using the space for a pyramid scheme, and she got extremely upset, saying that this happens all the time in the industry. They will go to sign, and last minute the leaseholder will decide to opt out, only after using it for some fly-by-night operation. She thanked me for the info, and I thought that was the end of it. But this was literally just the beginning for John's troubles. A few weeks later, I actually received an email from John telling me how I ruined his life, about how the property manager found out about what was going on, and they were not refunding his down payment on the space, saying he violated a clause in the paperwork he signed to hold the property. He also said he knew I was the one that called because I'm a terrible human being, and now he was out thousands of dollars for the space and supplies, and how he only wanted to give us jobs and help us out. It was a long, very angry email with several things about me and my mother. So I decided to call the rental space once again. I spoke with a lady from before, and she was very interested in an email from John where he essentially admitted to what he was trying to do. She then said this would be very helpful in their legal proceedings. And don't you know, I was more than happy to send that email along to her. Her lawyer said it should be an open and shut case at that point. And honestly, it feels good to be a helper up against this weird pyramid scheme. Wow, that's a crazy situation to be stuck in. Can you imagine driving all that way to get to this office, only to then find out that you're actually signing up for a pyramid scheme? Like seriously, did this guy really think he was gonna get away with that? That's honestly insane to me. But I love how everything just like unfolded upon itself the second that John got exposed. Everyone there was getting upset. Even Sarah, the supposed secretary for 6 months, was like, I don't know this guy. And she was calling him a different name. Like, that is hilarious to me. And I would be super upset as well if this was me. There's no way I would take that sitting down. This guy was trying to scam people out of their money. He was literally trying to take their money away from them with this weird pyramid scheme just to sell knives. That is so wrong, and he absolutely deserved to get in trouble for that. So honestly, good for the original poster. They went above and beyond to make sure this guy got exactly what he deserved, because pyramid schemes are truly a waste of time, and no one should ever be subjected to it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My cousin has to be removed from my house after he tried to ruin my 4-year-old nephew's graduation party, and now my aunt and uncle are claiming that I betrayed the family while also calling me the jerk. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So my nephew just graduated from preschool, and they had preschool graduation. My nephew, by the way, is only 4 years old. After, all the children came to my sister's house for a party, since they might not see each other again and will attend different elementary schools. Our cousin came to the graduation and complained the entire time through the ceremony that it was stupid, and the kids shouldn't get to have a preschool graduation because he never got one. Mind you, this cousin is 35 years old. The kids also got recognized for learning how to read, which really upset him, and he said loudly, I know how to read too, these kids are nothing special. The parents behind us became increasingly angry at him talking through the ceremony and eventually confronted him, causing a scene. At the party, he ate several cupcakes meant for the kids, causing a shortage so some kids just couldn't get any. He sat down at the kids' table and started quizzing the kids on trivia trivia, and when they didn't know what he was talking about, he said they're not so smart after all. He specifically picked a fight with one little girl. She was talking about how she learned how to read, and my cousin told her, "That's nothing special. Most of the population can read. Do you think your kindergarten teacher will be impressed? They won't." This then led to a screaming confrontation with the girl's parents, causing the children to cry. I then had my cousin removed from the house. This then caused a huge rift in our family, with his parents, my uncle and aunt, calling me up and chewing me out, saying to me, "How dare you choose the side of some random girl's parents over your own blood?" They then said I betrayed their cousin. So honestly, am I the jerk for kicking my cousin out after he basically ruined my nephew's graduation? Okay, first off, what 30-year-old is gonna walk around, go to a graduation party, and then act like a complete idiot? Like seriously, they're 4-year-olds. Does it really matter that they're having a graduation? Like, does it mean that much that you want to bully children all because they're getting congratulated for knowing how to read? That's a good accomplishment. And also, why would you show up to this in general if you knew you were gonna have a bad time? It almost seems like this guy came to this graduation just to cause problems. Like seriously, this is not the time to be weird and cause a scene. There are a bunch of parents who just want to see their kid graduate and smile and take a picture with them. This is supposed to be a good time and this guy's literally ruining it. So I don't blame you for getting this guy out of your party. He was just straight up bullying children. I mean, what does that say about him? I mean, what a complete loser. And let's talk about your uncle and aunt. They're also complete morons. Are they seriously gonna act like this is some kind of weird, unforgivable betrayal? Like, come on. That's incredibly stupid and incredibly childish if you ask me. So no, you didn't do anything wrong. Your cousin and your uncle and aunt are being weirdos, and all three of them need to learn how to grow up. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that I didn't want her to join me and my date for dinner? Here's what happened. So I'm a 26-year-old female, and I have a friend who's 25 who I met in college. And although losing touch for a little bit after college, I moved to the same town as her 6 months ago for work, and we've hung out quite a bit since then. I have kind of integrated into her friend group, which is 5 other girls, not including us. And although I'm not as close with them as they are with each other, it does make sense, seeing as how they've known each other for a bit longer. I was recently on a first date with a woman that I've liked for a bit. We'll call her Jessica, that's not her real name. We were having coffee at a cafe, and all of a sudden, my friend walks up to us and says hi. It's not a big deal. I know that she comes here a lot, and I introduced them, and my friend is super nice to my date. At this point, I hadn't told my friend this was a date. She knows I've dated women in the past, but I wasn't expecting her to realize this was a date because it very well could have just been a friend. Then she asks if she can join us and starts to pull up a chair. My date and I are both visibly thrown off by this, and I say to them, "Oh, I'm sorry, but Jessica and I are on a date right now. I'll see you later though." My friend then says, "Oh, I don't mind," and then sits down. So I reiterate more clearly, I'd love to hang out another time, but right now I'd like for it to just be Jessica and I. She then says okay and leaves, and I thought that was the end of it. Not a big deal, right? I mean, I don't expect her to know who I'm dating and who I'm not dating, so it's fine. It's all good. I then get a call from a different girl in the friend group that night who tells me that my friend called her and was upset about earlier. So I immediately called my friend and I ask if we can talk. She says it was rude of me to brush her off. It wouldn't have been a big deal if she joined us, and her other gay friend lets her hang out with him and his boyfriend all the time. This gets to me a little bit because I feel like the two situations are not only being compared because her friend and I are both not straight. I tell her that because it was a date, it's different, and that she can't expect to join me on a first date. She keeps arguing, and finally I get fed up and I snap at her. I say to her, "Be honest. If I was on a date with a guy, you would have taken no for an answer and not had a problem." And right then she hung up. She has not talked to me since then, but she told the entire friend group and they are now split. I know this because the friend who first told me that she was upset, as well as one other girl, messaged me individually to let me know what was going on and that they're sorry about what happened. The messages from the people on my friend's side are making me second guess myself. I do get that I snapped at her on the phone and that was rude at the end of our conversation, but I don't think I'm in the wrong for not wanting her to join us. But honestly, am I the jerk for the way I behaved at the end of our conversation? What should I do? First off, I don't think you're the jerk. I think some of the comments you made might have been a little bit harsh, but honestly, you were upset, so I don't completely blame you for snapping at this friend. They were being incredibly entitled. They were acting like you're the problem just because she was invading your date. That's not fair for anybody, and it's especially not fair for you or Jessica. I mean, who in their right mind would make such a big deal about not being able to be a third wheel on a first date? Like seriously, your friend should have picked up on the clues and not been so intrusive. She should have picked up immediately that this was was not a normal circumstance, and she absolutely should have gone about her day and done something else, instead of trying to pull up a chair and be like, oh, don't mind me, I'm just gonna be here. Like, no, you've gotta leave, this is a date, please leave us alone. And a first date for that matter. I mean, what kind of first impression is this gonna be for Jessica? She probably thought that this was incredibly weird and very strange. And in the moment, you were absolutely not rude. You politely told her that she couldn't join you and that you would hang out another time. But instead of just taking that and being like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize, have a good day, she decided to act entitled and really weird. And honestly, in my opinion, that is not your fault. She sounds like a weird friend, and it sounds like she's trying to bite back after she completely embarrassed herself. I just found out my fiance cheated on me at the beginning of our relationship, and now I seriously don't know what to do. So as you can tell from the title, I just found out that my fiance cheated on me when we first started dating. About 3 hours ago, I was working on cleaning out my mess of a closet when I got the dreaded "Hey girl" DM. I saw the name and I knew immediately it was my fiance's ex-girlfriend. My fiance and I met at my first job, and he was the older, cute college guy who already had a girlfriend and was safe to crush on without actually having to do anything about it. He was so cute, and I had a crush on him all the way up until I left for college and stopped working at that job. I didn't see him much after that, but I've always carried a little bit of a torch for him all these years. Nothing crazy. I would just notice if he liked my social media posts and would get small butterflies if I ever did run into him around town. But a few years after I graduated college and had moved back to my hometown full time, I ran into him and we actually stopped to talk for a while, and he asked if I wanted to get some coffee and catch up, which I jumped at, of course, like a pathetic little girl. It seemed like we really hit it off, and I ended up admitting that I had a crush on him back in the day, and he told me he always had a thing for me too, and it just went from there and we started dating. Like 2 weeks into dating, May 2021, something like that, he asked me to be exclusive. I agreed right away because obviously I did want to do that. Now, I'm super private when it comes to relationships, and I do not like to post about mine or do any kind of like public display of affection, and this will be important to the story later. So if you weren't actively friends or family of ours, you would really have no way of knowing we were in a relationship. That is until my boyfriend proposed to me 2 weeks ago, and we both posted about it on social media. We'll call him John, that's not his real name. Right now, he's currently on a business trip and I'm at home. I got that DM earlier, the one from his ex-girlfriend he had been dating back when we originally met, and I got sick to my stomach. We'll call his ex-girlfriend Jane, also not her real name. She says, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but my name is Jane and I used to date John. A couple of years ago, John came to town for a college reunion and we ended up hooking up. This was July 15th of 2021. I hate to be messaging you this, but I saw his post about proposing and I just connected the dots on the dates, and it seems like you two were together at that point. I'm so sorry. I never would have hooked up with him if I had known he was with someone else. Please feel free to ignore me or message me back with any questions. She also sent pictures of them from that weekend, one in a bed, and screenshots of their text messages, as well as where he talked about how good it was, if you know what I mean. Now, I've been drinking vodka ever since, and I haven't messaged her back. I haven't talked to my fiance, and I haven't told my friends. I feel so out of sorts, and I don't want to tell anyone, but I also want to scream about it. I'm just so glad he's out of town. I don't want to see his stupid face. I'm gonna leave him. I mean, I have to, right? I just don't know how. Should I pack up everything and leave before he gets back, or confront him head on? What should I do? First off, I want to say this is an awful situation to be stuck in, and seriously, I am so sorry that you're stuck in this mess. Here you thought you had somebody who was going to be loyal to you. You had a fiance that you loved and cherished and you wanted to be with them, but then they turn around and allegedly cheat behind your back. That is honestly so disgusting, and I'm so sorry. And the fact that this happened while you two were dating is especially just so weird. He asked you to be exclusive, not the other way around. He wanted you as his girlfriend, and he just completely ruined that experience and just threw that all out the window the second he decided to spend some quality time with Jane. So honestly, at least you know what's going on, so you can at least make an informed decision about your future. If you want to try and confront him about it and figure out if this is true, you can definitely do that. Or if you wanted to pack up and leave and give yourself some time, you can do that as well. But at least you're finding out what happened before you get married, because divorces are expensive, and I can only imagine the kind of nightmare this would be if you found out about this later in life. Am I the jerk for threatening to kick my brother-in-law out of my wedding after he showed up wearing something I never approved? Here's what happened. I got married to my husband last weekend. We spent months planning it, and we were really excited because we had managed to rent our dream venue. We found the perfect bakery jewelry for the cake, and we had gorgeous decorations. We went with a fairy tale aesthetic, and most of our decoration was a dark green and wood-toned. For the bridal party, we chose a few fairly affordable dresses that fit the theme, about $100 each, and I asked each of my bridesmaids to buy one for themselves, but also clarified that if any of them was struggling financially, I would cover the cost of the dress. A few weeks ago, my husband's brother, who was one of the groomsmen, asked me whether he could wear a dress to the wedding as well. I knew that he liked expressing himself through fashion, so I told him to go ahead, and I sent him the same selection of dresses my bridesmaids had been given. Apart from thanking me, I didn't hear back from him about the dress situation, so I just assumed that there would be no problems. However, the day of the wedding, he showed up in a pink dress, not a muted rose, but a hot pink, as if he was a walking highlighter. I asked him what in the world he was wearing, and he told me that I had given him permission to wear a dress. I had given him permission, but I was expecting him to pick a pre-chosen selection, and I had very clearly communicated that to him. But he just shrugged and said that he didn't like any of those dresses. At that point, I was nothing but stressed and trying to hold back my angry tears. Even after my husband had tried talking to him, he insisted on wearing that dress and set an ultimatum for him to either go change or get out. He told me to calm down because Bridezilla wasn't a good look for me, and I just screamed at him to go. He can either change or I'm gonna kick him out myself. He seemed surprised at my outburst, and with an annoyed huff, he went to get changed into my husband's suit. Apart from that incident, the evening was lovely, and except for the ceremony, my husband tried keeping his brother as far away from me as possible. I've had some time to think about the situation, and I'm starting to think I might have overreacted a bit, and I shouldn't have been as rude. Both my husband and my bridesmaids think that I had every right to be angry, but my brother-in-law hasn't talked to any of us since the wedding, and my brother received some calls from his family about how he shouldn't have let me talk like that to his brother. What should I do? First and foremost, there's a dress code for this wedding. It doesn't matter if this guy's wearing a dress or a suit. He needs to show up in the proper attire. So the fact that he showed up in a hot pink dress was incredibly inappropriate. That was blatantly not allowed, and this guy knew that. If he didn't want to change, he should not have shown up looking the way that he did. Clearly, nobody cared at that wedding that he was wearing a dress. Like, go for it. Do whatever you want. But if you're gonna be wearing a dress, it needs to stick to the dress code. It needs to match the themes, and you absolutely have to follow the rules. Like, this is not your wedding. If you're gonna show up, you need to listen to what the bride and the groom want you to wear. Otherwise, it's simply not gonna work. So seriously, good for you for putting your foot down. This was your special day, and just like everybody else has been saying, you had every right to put this entitled brother-in-law in his place. An entitled interpreter claims that I'm a scammer and tries to convince my deaf customer that I'm trying to take all of his money. But this guy isn't aware that I know everything he's saying to my customer. So as a result, I get him in trouble, which then leads to him getting fired. Here's what happened. Years ago, I worked doing call center tech support for a legitimate US-based company. We served mostly elderly clients. The way it worked, they'd pay a subscription, and we were on call 24/7 as much as they needed. We could remotely access their PCs to fix them, log in to show them how to do something, like low-level computer training, on par with basic computer classes that you might see at a community college. Stuff like that. This service wasn't cheap, easily in excess of $100 a month, but justifiable given that most customers would call a couple of times a week for one thing or another and could take a couple of hours per call. Several of our customers were deaf, and they would call us via a teletype service. For those who don't know, the deaf caller types or signs with a third-party service who then calls and speaks for them, relaying the message over the phone to the person on the other end. They are supposed to be impartial and convey messages word for word. It's essentially a translator job. You don't inject commentary into the discussion, just relay the message as precisely as possible. However, some of the smaller services only staff a few dozen operators and have frequent dealings with the same customers, so there's a sense of familiarity that can arise, and sometimes that impartiality is compromised, and it's a hard job to fill. You need someone who has typing skills rivaling a court reporter and fluent in ASL and willing to work a lot of hours for minimum wage, so sometimes they just put up with awful employees to maintain staffing. A customer called us using one such teletype service for help removing some malware from his computer. Initially, all went according to plan. In the course of removing the malware, he needed to reboot his PC, which means he would be discounted from the teletype operator who he was communicating with via that PC. So when the computer reboots, I reconnect his PC and he connects to the service again. This This time, he gets a different operator, some guy by the name of James. That's not his real name. And this is someone who he had apparently interacted with before. Mind you, the call was unnecessary. I can see his computer screen and everything he's typing to the teletype operator. I could have chatted with him directly through the PC, but it wasn't my call. So this James guy, serving as our go-between, suddenly decides that I'm a scammer and he's going to warn my customer. He starts putting words in my mouth, things I did not say. Completely unaware, I can see all of this on the customer's computer. He remarks that he can't understand me through my heavy Indian accent. I'm a white guy, by the way, born in the United States, and I could not fake a convincing Indian accent even if I tried. He then starts to get really sketchy, explaining to my customer that part of his disability is that he can't hear my accent, and if he could, he would hang up immediately and know it was a scam. He keeps making these little asides with the customer, which I can see in the chat, telling him I don't actually work for the company that I claim to work for, and warning him not to give me a credit card. I never asked for one, as this customer is a subscriber. I've had his number for years and charge a predetermined amount monthly per our contract. James then goes on to say, he doesn't work for this company. They're just saying that, lying about you having a computer virus to take your money. That company would never hire a guy like that. I get how he can think that. We've all seen this scam before. In the right context, it's not bad advice, but he doesn't have all the facts, like that our customer has been a client for years, that we have a contract and he was getting charged the same amount if he called me or not. This wasn't the case of a customer returning some scammer's voicemail. He was calling a service vendor he had existing dealings with. So I open up Notepad on this guy's desktop and I start typing to him. I say to him, "Sir, I can assure you I did not ask for your credit card number, nor will I ever do that. I can see the chat screen and half of what I'm saying is not being conveyed at all. And most of what he is typing to you, I did not say. Also, he's not telling me what you're typing. Or when he does, he's conveying it in a very hostile tone." The customer then types back in the Notepad window, "Yeah, you're talking to James. I've dealt with him before. He's an absolute jerk. I'm so sorry. He's supposed to quote us word for word, but I've had some suspicions about him for a while. I've complained a few times, but nothing ever comes of it." So I address James. "Hey James, you do realize I can see the customer screen as we talk, right? I do work for this company and I can prove it." And right when I said that, he went absolutely silent. I said to him, "Can you put your supervisor on the phone, buddy? I'd love to show him these chat logs, and of course, I'm recording the call on my end. I'll send him a copy as well." So because of that, this customer got his teletype service comped for a few months, many apologies from the service, and James got fired. I removed the malware, and the customer reached out to me via email, thanking me a few weeks later, and he had a lot more to say. Apparently, he learned from the others at the teletype company that James had been up to other shenanigans as well. Customers he didn't like, he would do passive-aggressive stuff, like mess up pizza orders and dinner reservations, or would purposefully transpose numbers so credit cards would be declined, or people would be unable to make return phone calls. He had a long history of being an absolute jerk that could be summed up to minor mistakes, but judging by the frequency and the nature, must have been deliberate. His employer apparently didn't keep good records or retain call recordings for very long, so the company had a hard time firing him. This one time, he actually broke the rules trying to help a customer and forgot that the call centers keep really good records, and they are very willing to share them. What really bothered us the most wasn't learning of his other passive-aggressive stunts. You kind of expect awful service from anyone you deal with on the phone. It was the white knight mentality. He was so happy to charge in as the hero with no idea what he was getting into. He was going to save people from themselves by imposing his own superior judgment. He was actually exploiting a disability to do just that. Had I not been able to see the screen, neither the customer or myself would have known what the other was saying. And this ignorant jerk would have been proud of his deception and actually thought he was a good person because of it. It's so condescending. Even if his intentions were good, I'm glad he got fired. I just want to say most teletype services do their jobs extremely well. I've worked with many over the years, and this was an isolated incident in my experience. You usually forget that the person you're speaking with isn't the actual caller. They are just that good. This was just one guy on a power trip, taking advantage of his position for the sake of his own ego. Being the gatekeeper to other people's communication with the world is actually a lot more power than many people can or should be trusted with. That guy was an absolute jerk. Not only was he doing his job incorrectly, but he was also making up this scheme of like, oh no, this other guy's some kind of scammer. Like, what are you doing? disgusting. Why would you do that to somebody else? And to a customer who clearly needs your help. Like, that guy absolutely should have been fired. And this is only after finding out that he's been doing this for a while. Gatekeeping communication for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. Like, come on, what a loser. So thankfully, the original poster was able to see what was going on, and they were able to interject and intervene, because that other guy was a complete jerk, and he had absolutely no business acting the way that he did. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Am I the jerk for forcing my stepdaughter to cut her hair, all because I'm tired of having to do it for her in the morning? Here's what happened. So I met my husband 8 years ago, and we have been married for 6, and he has an 11-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. I work from home, so I mainly end up taking care of her, and I have since she was young. We generally have a pretty good relationship, and she stays at her mother's house most weekends. She has incredibly long blonde wavy hair, just past her bottom. It is a nightmare to take care of. It frequently tangles, and she always needs help brushing and styling it before school. Now, I'm not a morning person, and I do not like waking up early just to do the kids' hair. It's expensive to maintain, as she requires more products, and she insists on using hair oils, which can cost close to $11 and only last for a few weeks. She also says that she needs to use curly hair shampoo instead of regular shampoo and conditioner, which is often over $10 per bottle, and she goes through it at a fast rate. She won't use a regular brush on it, as she claims that it breaks her hair and it hurts. So she uses a wide tooth comb, which takes a long time to brush, when she could be doing other more productive things, such as homework or helping me with chores. I decided that she had become obsessed with her hair, and I do not want her to become vain, so I decided it needs to be cut. I don't see it as a big deal, as I have always had shoulder length hair, as my hair does not grow very fast, and I get frequent trims. It is a lot more practical. I took her to the hairdresser as normal. In the car on the way down, she said she wants to make sure the hairdresser doesn't take off too much, but I politely explained that I would like her to cut off her hair to shoulder length, as it has become a burden. At first, she thought I was joking, but when she realized I wasn't, she started to cry. When we got to the salon, the hairdresser was reluctant to cut her hair due to her being in tears, but I explained the trouble we have maintaining it and assured her that cutting it would be best for her. In the end, the stylist agreed and cut her hair. So the stylist braided her hair and then cut it, and then she kept it. Her hair was now just past shoulder length, and it looked a lot darker. The car journey home was silent, and I even offered her McDonald's, but she refused. She went straight to her room when we got back. My husband went up to see her when he got home, and apparently found her on her bed sobbing, holding her old hair. My husband immediately called her mother to come and collect her, and as soon as my stepdaughter was out the door, he started yelling. Her mother also came in and gave me a mouthful. I explained my reasoning, but my husband wouldn't budge. He said that if I had issue, he would have done her hair in the mornings, and that he didn't mind paying for the products. He was so furious, he said he no longer trusts me around his daughter and doesn't know if he can be with a woman who he doesn't trust with her. And this just broke my heart. I didn't mean her any harm. I was just so tired, and I'm trying to reduce stress in my life. I've always been the one to raise her and her brother, and honestly, I'm just so exhausted. So am I the jerk for forcing my stepdaughter to cut her hair? What should I do? This stepmother and original poster in this story is an awful human being. Like, you are the worst person on planet Earth. You really made this girl cut her hair off all because you were tired and you're not a morning person, trying to justify it as her just being vain? No, she's a kid. She's a kid who enjoys her hair, and you made her cut it off because you didn't like it. Like, what are you doing? Your husband is completely right. If I was him and you did that to my daughter, I wouldn't want to be with you. I mean, I can't imagine anybody wanting to be with you after doing that. You betrayed so many people's trust just then, and you have scarred this little girl for the rest of her life. Like, seriously. You have now become that stepmother who literally went out of their way to betray everybody's trust. And even after being confronted about this, you still just don't get it. Like, everybody's upset. Even her biological mother came into the house and was like, "What are you doing?" And by the way, the little girl whose life you just ruined, she is 11 years old. Literally, this is like the most insecure age on planet Earth. From like 11 years old all the way up till 17. And you just chopped her hair off all of the sudden. You literally took away part of her identity, and you made like a massive change in her life. Which, by the way, kids at that age don't want massive changes. That's like the perfect recipe just to suddenly get bullied. Like, seriously, the original poster, you are an awful person. What you did was cruel and uncalled for, and any consequences consequences that come about because of this are quite literally not only deserved, but absolutely your own fault. Am I the jerk for having a surprise wedding at mine and my husband's engagement party? Here's what happened. So for some background, my father suddenly passed away in February. It's been a big shock and adjustment for everybody. My now husband proposed on my birthday in March. He had already talked to my mom and dad about it. I'm not a fan of big parties, so my husband and I decided to do a small celebration for our engagement, as well as having a nice meal at a fancy hotel so everyone can just dress up. The more we planned and talked about it, we thought it would be fun to just get married. We have been together for coming up on 10 years, and neither of us wanted to have a big wedding, so we thought a small surprise wedding would really suit us well. Especially with my dad passing away, I didn't want a traditional big white wedding. We invited a total of 10 people from his side of the family and mine. We also invited our best friends who are also in a relationship. It all goes to plan and everyone arrives. They were escorted into our reserved room where they see a sign saying "Welcome to the wedding." Everyone is surprised. The person marrying us gets people in places. My husband and I walk in together and we get married right then and there. Both of our moms sign the marriage certificate and then we go for our sit-down meal. Everyone seemed happy at the time. People were laughing, saying they should have expected it, and we had a photographer there to catch their reaction, as well as the ceremony and opportunities to pose for pictures. We went away locally for a small honeymoon, and when we got back, both my mom and his mom have pulled us aside separately simply to say that they were disappointed in us, that we had taken away their opportunity to be with us when we chose a venue, as well as any aspect of the wedding planning stuff. They are both especially upset that they never came wedding dress shopping with me, which I ironically didn't even do myself. I just bought an emerald green 1950s bodycon pencil dress online. It was the first and only dress I tried on. So honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk for taking away everyone's chances to be involved with my wedding? I don't think you're the jerk at all. If this is how you and your husband wanted it to be done, then guess what? That's how it's gonna be done. Honestly, in my opinion, I've never been a fan of extended family or immediate family feeling entitled and obligated to stick their hands in every aspect of somebody else's wedding. That, in my opinion, seems really obnoxious, and sure, people might enjoy that, but personally, I would find that super irritating. So I really do love the way you did it. You did it on the spot, you did it your way, and it was something that both you and your husband are going to enjoy for the rest of your lives. So no, you're not the jerk in the slightest. Of course, your moms are going to be upset because they weren't involved, and I think they did come from a place where they were genuinely interested in being involved, but at the end of the day, this is all entirely up to you two. And in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that. My coworker has been getting a free ride from me to and from work for about 14 months, but now I'm asking that she pay her way in order to get a ride from me. And as a result, I'm being called a jerk, as well as someone who's being very inconsiderate. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. For the last 14 months, I've been driving one of my coworkers to and from work. She only lives a mile up the road from me and is on the way, so I've never asked her for a dime or accepted when she's offered me money. From my perspective, I'm going there either way, and her overall household expenses are higher than my own, so it felt like the thing to do. Over the weekend, my car went to the shop. I told my coworker that I wouldn't be available to give her a ride either Monday or Tuesday. She said it wasn't a problem because her boyfriend is off this week and would give her a ride instead. I asked if I could bum a ride as well, and I even offered to walk to her home so they wouldn't have to drive backwards. She asked her boyfriend about it, and he said he would, but he wanted $20 for 2 days. I know it's just $20, but that really set me off. I declined the offer and said I would find my own ride to work. At work yesterday, she asked about my car. I told her I would be getting my car Tuesday night after work, but going forward, I would like $30 a week if she wanted to ride with me, and that's 1/3 of my gas cost. She was upset about this and said her boyfriend had only wanted money from me because by having me in the car, he was being forced to drive straight home when he picked me up. I pointed out that I've been happy to drive straight home to help her out for over a year, and that it probably wouldn't have ruined him to show me at least some level of appreciation. Today, she said she no longer will be riding with me. After talking about it with her boyfriend, she said she felt disappointed with me holding her actions against her and that I was being petty. A couple other coworkers told me throughout the day that her boyfriend was just a jerk and she doesn't really have a say at home, but overall agreed with me that it was a jerk move. From my perspective, this dude directly benefits from me thanks to his girlfriend not needing a car of her own or spending a dime in travel, and my coworker should have defended me. So honestly, was it petty of me to to ask for money? What should I do? Personally, I don't think you're the jerk in this situation. Maybe a little bit petty, but honestly, let's think about what just happened here. You were only asking for a ride for 2 days. You've given this lady a ride for 14 months. That's a long time to be giving someone a ride for free at that. And her boyfriend's suddenly gonna be like, I need 20 bucks. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is not even coming close to returning the favor. This is you literally asking for something that you're owed. You just needed a ride to work. And they really want to act like this is some kind of big burden and act like they're gonna need your money just to make that happen. So honestly, I don't blame you for asking for money. This coworker clearly had a good gig that she was obviously taking advantage of. And instead of coming to bat for you when her stupid boyfriend was asking for money, she literally just let that happen. And that speaks volumes about her friendship with you. Am I the jerk for not wanting to help my family's restaurant, all because my brother was being paid and I wasn't? Here's what happened. So my parents recently came into a fair bit of money, which was an inheritance from one of my mom's elderly relatives, and they decided to buy out a local ice cream shop that was going out of business. They love that place because it's where they met and has tons of sentimental meaning to them. They also hired my 18-year-old brother to work there because they want him to have job experience before going off to college. They didn't offer to hire me, and I didn't ask because I already have a fast food job. Anyways, my house is pretty close to the shop, and my friends and I decided to meet up there yesterday for ice cream and to hang out. For reference, we're a group of 4 high schoolers. It was pretty busy when we got there, so we got in line. About a minute in, my brother came out of the back and waved me over. He handed me an apron and asked me to help out his coworkers in the back because they had to clean the machines as soon as possible, but my brother had to open a second register because of how busy it was. I refused on the grounds that I wasn't being paid, and he said that I had to help out because it's the family business and because of how swamped the place was and how panicked his coworker was. He even offered to let my friends skip the line if I helped out for 10 minutes just to give his coworker a hand, and said that I owed it to him, all because I brought in such a big group. I decided that that would cause a scene in the pack shop, and I refused again. He then huffed and waved me off, then went to open the second register. I went back to my friends, and the rest of our meetup went pretty well, but my brother kept giving me dirty looks until we got our cones and then we left. Later that night, my parents confronted me and said that what I did was petty. They told me to work a shift the next day to make up for it, but backed off once I reminded them that I have an actual job that I was scheduled to work pretty much all day the next day. I ended up getting off scot-free. However, my whole family maintains that I'm being petty and lazy, and now I'm wondering if they're right. What should I do? You are not being lazy. Like, that is honestly such a ridiculous thing to say. First and foremost, I think it's probably smart to find a different place to hang out, because it sounds like when you walk into that ice cream shop, they're going to be expecting you to come in there to work. And you know what? I don't blame you. If I'm not getting paid, I'm not going to work. There's no way that's going to happen. This is not a charity, and if you can make money, well, so can I. And also, you came in there to get ice cream with your friends. You didn't come in there to suddenly have to pick up a shift and try and pick up the slack on a really busy day. You came there to hang out with friends. So in my opinion, it was incredibly rude for your brother to wave you over and expect you to start working for no pay. Like, that's not okay in my opinion. So good for you for putting your foot down. And maybe next time you want to hang out, I would go somewhere else. Because if that place really is the family business suddenly, then it might be better for you and your friends to try and stay away. An entitled Karen tricks me into letting her into our store before opening and tries to steal an Xbox off of one of our register counters. And I've never been more shocked by someone's behavior in my life. Here's what happened. So I work as a warehouse stock person in an electronics store. Basically, I go around to every shelf in the departments and I make sure that the products are in the place that they should be. It's a pretty easy gig, especially since I clock in and clock out before the store opens. So I never interact with customers. That is, until today. It was a pretty typical morning of checking off the shelved products when I heard someone loudly banging on the locked front doors. I could hear it all the way from the back of the store where I was wrapping a security tag onto one of our new Xboxes. And this will be important later. While carrying the Xbox, I walk into view of the doors and see a 30-something-year-old woman banging her fist on the glass. I saw that she was wearing a jacket with a company color on it, so I assumed that she was a coworker. She stopped banging when she saw me and waved hello. Now remember, I only work before opening shifts, so I never interact with customers, but I also don't know all of my other coworkers who do work during the store hours. I thought to myself, oh, she must be one of the sales reps, because they do often come in about 30 minutes early if they have an opening shift, and it was about 40 minutes until opening, so it didn't really raise any alarms with me. I walk up to the front doors, and there are 2 sets of them with a vestibule in between them. The first set opens to the outside and lets you into the vestibule, and the second set opens up and lets you into the store. The lady is standing outside. I take the Xbox I was holding, and I place it on the register counter nearest to the door. I unlock the second set of doors and step up to the first set and begin pushing it open, when the lady suddenly shoves her body through the opening of the doors. I guess waiting 2 whole seconds for me to finish opening the door was just too much for her. She is already past the second set of doors and walking into the store when I finish closing and locking both sets. She wasn't walking to a register to clock in. She wasn't directly walking to any department either. All she did was quickly look around the store before turning back to me and saying, "Where's your game section? I'm looking for a Nintendo Switch." And at this point, my heart dropped. She wasn't a coworker, she was a customer, and I just let her into the store before opening. This was a big mistake. I start to internally panic a little, but think to myself that all I need to do is get her out of the store. I say to her, "I'm sorry ma'am, but we don't open for another 40 minutes. I thought you were one of my coworkers when I let you in." This entitled Karen rolls her eyes and says, "The website says that you open at 8:30 and it's now 8:20. But I tell her that our website says 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm telling you it's 9, so you now need to leave. But this entitled Karen wasn't having it. She said to me, "I only need to buy a Switch. It'll be what, 10 minutes? She begins to walk further into the store when I stand in her path. I say to her straight up, "You can buy whatever you want at 9 o'clock a.m., but right now you need to leave." This lady is getting upset. She says to me, "I want to speak to your manager right now." Now, I was the only one working in the warehouse that morning. We are really understaffed for the record, but there was a supervisor in the back office doing paperwork. The supervisor is a really understanding dude, so I knew he wouldn't get mad at me for letting this crazy lady in by mistake, but I made the idiot decision to deal with this myself. I say to her, "I am the only one here and you need to leave. This is a good time to tell you all that I am 5'3" and I'm a 110-pound female who looks like a 15-year-old when I'm really in my 20s. I do not look intimidating in any kind of way." The crazy lady got a smirk on her face and said, "Fine, I'll go." And when she starts walking towards the door, I think that's the end of it. That is until she grabs the Xbox off the counter and tries to unlock the doors. I rushed up to her, begin to tug at the Xbox, all while screaming for her to let go and that I will call the police. The Xbox was wrapped in a security tag, so the whole time this tug of war was happening, the door alarms are blaring because of the tag. My supervisor hears the alarm and comes out of the back office to find me wrestling with this crazy entitled Karen. He comes over to help, but not before this crazy lady punched me so hard in the stomach. I let go of the Xbox to hold my stomach, but she still doesn't have the door unlocked. I end up puking on her and the Xbox because she punched me so hard. She drops the Xbox and goes to hit me again, but I saw this one coming, and I mustered up all my strength and kicked her away. Now, I might not be strong, but I absolutely can be when I need to. But I only had the strength for that one kick. I rolled into a ball and agonized over the pain afterwards. My supervisor called the police while the woman whined in pain and was still trying to unlock the door. I guess she didn't realize that keys are used to open the doors. That is honestly insane to me. I can't imagine working the night shift or early in the morning and just stocking shelves, only to then let somebody in who isn't actually your coworker. That's like nightmare fuel to me. Not only was she super aggressive, but she obviously tried to steal from the store. She literally tried to run off with that Xbox, all because she wasn't being served in the way that she wanted to. Like, this could have gone really badly. Imagine if she had some kind of weapon or something else that she could have hurt this person with. This would have been a completely different story altogether. So thankfully you had help there at the store to stop this crazy entitled Karen from stealing that Xbox, because her behavior was honestly insane, and no one deserved to deal with that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My child didn't like any of the food that he was eating at my friend's house, so as a result, I left dinner and went to get my son McDonald's. And now my wife is angry at me, saying that I did the wrong thing and that I was being a complete jerk. Here's what happened. So a friend of my wife's invited my family, meaning my wife, our son, and I, over for dinner with him and his daughter. As long as we've known him, this friend has kept a very strict diet, which has almost always led to us eating over at his place. But he is an excellent cook, so I've never minded it. We have not, however, seen him since both of our children were infants. For dinner, we were served salmon and quinoa. My son is very mild for a 5-year-old. He throws tantrums very rarely and is the opposite of a picky eater, but I could tell from how he was acting that he was not vibing with this meal. He was picking at his plate, shuffling the food, and while he did try the salmon, he didn't seem to like it at all. I asked him if he was happy with his dinner, and he said no, he wasn't. I basically just laughed and said, "Kids, right?" and asked if there was anything else for my son to eat. My wife's friend said that his daughter just eats whatever he makes, and he doesn't keep kids' food around the house. My wife said it was fine. Our son would be fine. While he is a mild kid, he definitely gets angry when he's hungry, and this was the beginning of our night. I said that our son needed to eat so that he would have energy to play, and we apologized, saying I'd be gone for just a few minutes, picking something up for our kid. My wife's friend seemed really bothered, but said he'd try and keep my plate warm. I was gone for about 30 minutes, and I came back with a Happy Meal from McDonald's, and I ordered extra fries in case his daughter wanted any, which she was not allowed to have. By the time I was back, dinner was winding down. My son ate his meal, he had dessert, and went off to play with his friend. It was definitely a hiccup in the night, but things went fine. We had a good time, but my wife was definitely cold with me. When we got home 3 hours after the dinner, she told me that I was a jerk at dinner for no reason. I pointed out that if I hadn't gotten our son dinner, he would have been a monster the entire way home, to which she replied that we would have just left earlier. I said I was just looking to solve the problem as it happened, and that if her friend had been more accommodating, we wouldn't have been in the situation in the first place. She got offended on his behalf, and we decided to just go to bed because we clearly were not getting anywhere. It's been 2 days since, and things are still stifled between us, and at this point, I'm not sure what to do. Let me get this straight. You went to somebody else's house, and you decided, oh yeah, this food's not good enough for my kids. I'm gonna go get some McDonald's. And then you left for 30 minutes, leaving your wife alone with these people just to try and carry on a conversation, and now you're wondering why she's upset? Like seriously, you're an idiot for doing that. That was incredibly rude. You brought your kids with you. Like seriously, what are you doing? If your kid's a picky eater, you need to bring something along with you. You can't leave it on people who don't know your kid to have food for your kid. And also, if your kid's gonna be a supposed monster on the way home, you could have left earlier and stopped at McDonald's on the way home. And you say that you're trying to solve the situations and the problems as they come up, but if anything, you literally just made things worse. Like seriously, this is your own fault and you should not have left dinner like that. That was very poor manners and that was just incredibly rude. So yeah, your wife is 100% right. You were definitely the jerk in this situation, and you should have thought more clearly about what would be appropriate at a dinner party at someone else's house. I got to serve my ex-wife's divorce lawyer tonight at the restaurant I work at, and needless to say, it was incredibly awkward. Here's what happened. So for a bit of background, I'm 45 years old, and I am in the middle of a career change from owning a business that got hit hard during COVID to being a mental health therapist specializing in substance issues and addiction. I'm going to school full-time by day to acquire a degree, so I took a job working nights at a fine dining restaurant, and this is my first ever restaurant gig. I got divorced 7 years ago, and my wife blindsided me with it. I decided to be the bigger person, and we had a very amicable divorce where she and I split everything up 50-50, including custody. I kept the house, and I even continued to employ her after we split. I didn't even hire a lawyer. We ironed it all out, and then she hired a lawyer who drew it all up, and I went to her office with my ex and we signed it. She went to court and I didn't. In 3 months' time, we were divorced. It was cake, and this was back in 2016. Now fast forward to 2020, and my ex is now married to a narcissist who has problems with his own ex, and this man causes friction with my ex and I. It got so bad she quit the job in 2019. She married him in 2019, and things just spiraled between us. It's her life, but it's sad she allowed that to happen. Before COVID, I had used substances recreationally, and I had smoked the herb every day, and my ex knew this. But during COVID, it developed into a full-blown, unbreakable addiction. I have never been more sick. I could not stop. I decided I needed help, and I sought out rehab. I was very open and honest with my ex. I told her the truth. I needed help, and if I don't get help and I don't get better, she needed to protect our kids from my destructive behavior. I went in, got sober, came out committed to never going back to that rehab. But when I got home, she was using her lawyer to try and basically take my kid away just for admitting that I had a problem, I was seeking help, and getting sober. She basically tried to mess me over for fixing myself and being honest with her about it. And this is all when I didn't have to admit anything to her. The lawyer really tried to stick it to me. She wanted to send me to have supervised visits with my 12-year-old child for 2 hours once every month. And that's among some other very harsh penalties. case. I was never going to give up custody voluntarily, and I called her bluff in taking me to court. We ended up in mediation, and I maintained my rights by agreeing to a year's worth of substance testing, which I completed in early 2020. My lawyer, who I hired because of this garbage, did a bang-up job helping me get through it with minimal loss. I don't actually fault my ex for wanting some safety net, but the lawyer was basically saying I didn't deserve my children. I have 3, but only one is a minor subject to custody. And this is all because I had an addiction and I went to rehab to get better. Just absolute inhumane nonsense. How does my kid benefit from that? Now, fast forward to tonight. Our seating sections are pre-arranged, and we have a small 80-cover seat restaurant with only 3 tables capable of seating 6 tops. Everything else is 2 to 4 tops. To get 8 or 10 people in, we have to push 2 tables together. As such, everything is reservations, and it's less than a year old, so it's always booked solid. I get my section, then go look at when my tables are coming in and how tight the turns are. I notice my first table is an 8 top and a name I recognized. Let's call her Jill Morgan. That's a made-up name for confidentiality. Now I'm thinking, man, I know Jill Morgan. Who is this Jill Morgan? And then it hits me. It's the ex's lawyer. Oh my God, she's assigned to my section. I tell the host and some others, and they offer to get me out of it, but it's an 8 top. She's a lawyer, and this could be a good table, so I risk it. And sure enough, right at restaurant time, Jill Morgan walks in and I see her. She sits alone at the table, and I ask her if she wants a cocktail. She's super uptight, and I can feel the stick way up her you-know-what as she sits there all alone. But she doesn't recognize me. It's been 7 years since the divorce visit, and I didn't see her at mediation, so I am just a waiter at a restaurant. But we have to put names down on our tables, and I haven't done this yet. The party starts to trickle in. I collect drink orders, I bring a charcuterie board, and she is starting to loosen up. I drop my name card and I do my spiel. I make eye contact with her, and it's clear she doesn't know who I am, which makes sense. She wouldn't expect to find me here in this situation. The whole table is lawyers, and I ended up endearing myself to them. I sell them $950 worth of food and cocktails, and I am supposed to put on an auto gratuity for tables that have 7 or more people, and I told them it was policy, but I dropped the check and I forgot to put auto gratuity in it, and before I grabbed their cards, I realized the error, so I told them I had to fix it. They convinced me to leave it off, and I would get over 20%, so I did, and it was more like 23 or 24%, but hey, they didn't lie. The funny thing is Jill Morgan tells me I did a great job and said that she would be back. On top of all of this, the mother of my best friend came into the bar tonight to eat dinner, and I noticed her right away. She moved away 10 years ago, and I haven't seen her since. So, between the table with my ex's lawyer, who wanted to take my kids away for going to rehab, I also got to visit with my best friend's mom and hug her, and remember him with her together. This universe, man, it has an absolutely twisted sense of humor, but I also believe that this occurred in tandem and is not a coincidence, and it is simply the universe smiling down on me. First off, I want to say that you've clearly gone through the ringer when it comes to life. Like, you obviously have been through so much, and you've come out the other end trying your best to just make it work, and that in my opinion is a big deal. Like, that is not something you should just shy away from. You really have worked hard to make it to where you're at, and you honestly should be proud of yourself. And also, you handled dealing with this lawyer like a pro. You didn't let it get to you, you basically just did your job, you kept it professional, and you got a sweet paycheck out of it. So honestly, good for you. You deserve this break in your life, and hopefully things get better from here on out. My boyfriend told me to stop asking for stuff, and to just accept things as he gives them to me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for almost 3 years now. In those 3 years, I have never asked for money, gifts, anything. All I have asked though is some quality time and life updates every now and then. We are both new to this big city. I don't know much of the people here, and most of the time we are apart due to grad school and work. We see each other 1 to 2 times per week, 3 times if we're lucky. I don't ask him for fancy dinners or anything, just that we hang out together and catch up. I also do not ask him to text me all the time, just to update me if he goes out and who he's with so that I know who to call or where to look for him if ever something happens. Well, something happened tonight. This guy kept on chatting him if he's available on Saturday. The name alarmed me because this was a guy from my high school with a history of violence and just reeks of frat boy attitude. I asked him where they were going, and he couldn't give me a solid answer. He also keeps hiding his phone whenever that guy chats. It became an argument and he got upset. He said I was too demanding and it's frustrating. I asked him for clarification. Is it too much when I ask you for updates? Is it too much when I want to know about your life? And his answer was a big yes. He added, "Just accept what I give you, okay? Stop asking because it's too much." At that point, I choked back my tears and I reassessed our entire relationship. Was I really asking for too much? I think that maybe when you're almost 3 years together and talking about marriage on top of that, you should know pretty much about your partner. No secrets, no lies. All I wanted was to catch up and know what's going on with him. He even said, "You don't feel anything because I don't ask you for updates." I told him calmly that I was monitored by my parents my whole life, but I'm aware of how controlled I felt, and that's why I kept me asking for updates to the very minimum. For context, he grew up with parents not caring about him in the slightest. He got into trouble so many times, and his parents just don't know. I said, "Well, I guess we're just two different people. Sorry." He then stormed out of my house, and I just sat there confused. He always leaves like this whenever we argue, and he's broken up with me at least twice over big arguments when we can't seem to find a solution. I love this guy, and I've basically changed my whole life to accommodate him. I think I've adjusted to his work-sleep schedule instead of focusing on my own career. He's basically the reason why I haven't gone out of my country for better opportunities. But now I feel like he's simply not the one. Was I asking for too much, or just asking the wrong person? What's my alternative here? What should I do? Your boyfriend is being ridiculous. I don't think it's that inappropriate to ask him for updates on what's going on in your life. I mean, he's treating you as if he's almost hiding something, but it's not like you're being super intrusive in the first place at all. Like you're just asking him, "Hey, what are you up to with your friend?" And that is literally it. Now, if you were seeing him every single day and you were spending every waking moment spending time with him, then this would be an entirely different story. This would be a situation where, yeah, you probably want to back off, but you only see each other once or twice a week. Asking for an update with this level of frequency of seeing him is not that unusual. So no, you're not being weird. If anything, your boyfriend's being weird. And you have every right to have a partner who's going to love you and give you proper updates to what's going on in his life. Am I the jerk for mocking my friend's husband's weight after he made an awful comment about how she gained some weight after having a baby? Here's what happened. So my best friend by the name of Jennifer, that's not her real name, just recently had a baby with her husband Timmy. That is also not his real name. My boyfriend and I got to meet their baby boy for the first time last weekend when they came over to our flat for dinner. We have a hot tub on our balcony that my parents gave us for Christmas last year and had told them to bring swimwear so that we could go in after dinner. My boyfriend wasn't up for it, so he held the baby while us three got ready to go in the tub. Jennifer was the last person to get changed and came out of the bathroom in a bikini. I thought she looked amazing, really happy and glowing, but Timmy kind of laughed and said something about her still having some weight to lose before she'd be as attractive as she was before her pregnancy. I was a bit stunned by that comment, and even though Jennifer didn't say anything, her smile disappeared and she looked obviously uncomfortable. She and I had talked about her struggling with the weight gain during her pregnancy, and I thought Timmy's comment was more than insensitive. I got angry because I started wondering what he might be saying to her in private if he was comfortable dropping lines like that in front of other people. So I responded by saying, "She just had a baby, what's your excuse?" The dude has a hefty beer belly and a double chin, but thinks he can joke about a new mom's weight. He then got really defensive and told me that I need to learn how to take a joke before stomping off to the hot tub. Jennifer chuckled at my comment, and I thought that was it. But when they left for the night, Timmy pulled me aside and told me to keep my nose out of other people's business. I don't think I was entirely in the wrong, but my boyfriend told me I shouldn't have reacted at all because it really wasn't my business, and I think Timmy's reaction speaks for itself, and it makes me wonder whether I might have been the jerk in this situation. What should I do? Honestly, insulting your partner in front of other people deserves to be called out. That is really not okay, and that's a fast track to getting corrected real quick. Like, why would that guy, in all honesty, be like, "Oh yeah, you gotta lose a few pounds before you're attractive again"? And in that same token, if we really want to go that route, this guy is overweight, has a double chin, and has a beer belly to boot. Like, seriously, what is this guy bragging about? So with that in mind, I don't blame you for speaking up. This is your best friend we're talking about. This guy had no right to talk to her like that. And you know what? If he wants people to stay out of his business, then maybe he shouldn't make condescending remarks like that and expect people to stay silent. And you know what? You're probably on the right track. I bet he probably does talk to her like that in private. And that is honestly awful. So in my opinion, I don't think you did anything wrong. This guy clearly had it coming, and his comment was completely out of line. My entitled cousin demands more money for his startup business, claiming that the $12,000 my father was giving him was not enough money and that he needed more money in order to get things going. And I've never been more blown away by this level of entitlement in my my life. Here's what happened. So I'll begin by saying that I come from a very well-known West African country, and I come from one of the 3 major ethnic groups in my country. My country has a lot of oil, and my father is an engineer and worked for a very big oil company here before he retired a few years ago. He's the second of 3 children, and due to his job, salary, and position within the company, he became the entire family's breadwinner. His eldest brother had 7 children with his wife, and his younger brother had 2 children with his late wife, and my father trained each and every one of them. He sent them all to school through their nursery to primary and secondary schools, and when they all graduated from high school, he gave each of them the option of either going to a higher institution or helping them start up a business of their own. Every Christmas, we would travel to the village, and he would buy multiple 50-kilogram bags of rice, bags of beans, tons of groceries, specially dried fishes, and so much more, and he would distribute this to the entire family. He catered for their siblings, cousins, old friends in the village, as well as their respective families so much, and it sometimes offended my mother because while he took excellent care of us, and she was never against him helping out his siblings, she felt he was making them overly dependent on him. He opened a thriving business for his elder brother's wife and stocked up her business with all the necessary wares, and he did the same for his younger brother, but anytime they had a problem of some kind, they'd choose to call him instead of solving even the most basic of problems by themselves. Now, this is all preamble to show you that he really cared for his family. Now, this all involves my father's elder brother's wife, who we will call Rita, as well as her eldest son by the name of Chris. Chris and Rita are not their real names. Rita is a woman in her 50s and Chris is in his mid-30s. When Chris was born, his mother despised him because given our tradition and culture, she felt like his pregnancy forced her into a marriage that she did not want, so she took out her frustration on him. When he was 11, my mother was a newlywed, and on one of her trips accompanying my dad to the village, she saw firsthand how awful Rita was being towards her son, which is pretty common here under the guise of discipline. And out of fear of his safety, my parents asked his father to let them take Chris with them back to the city so they could, in a sense, foster him as their own and remove him from that awful environment. I was barely a year old at this point. Chris lived with us for roughly 18 years. He got a good education, and when it was time to go to the university, he had a lot of problems gaining admission. In my country, all the universities, both state and federal, are under an organization, and everyone takes an annual national exam based on your intended course of study, and those who do the best are admitted into their institution of choice. He had taken this exam for about 6 years, and each time he had fallen short and wasn't given admission to a school. So my dad gave him the option to continue trying or to put it on hold and learn a good trade for about a year, and then after that, he would open up a business for him, and then maybe he could try getting into the university later on if he still wanted to. He chose the latter option, and he was sent off to another city to stay with a family friend who taught him all he needed to know about the given business for free, and after a year, he returned back home. My father gave him what is equivalent to about $12,000 to begin a business. Over here, $12,000 is a very big chunk of money, especially with the low cost of living compared to our Western counterparts, and also especially with how lax our tax laws are here. My dad offered him a check for that amount, and he refused it, saying how small the money was. My dad had already found a really good space for him to run his business, and had paid and rented it out for the next 2 years, as well as paid for the water and electricity bills. The $12,000 was an initial capital for him to stock up his wares, without having to worry about rent or any critical expenses for at least 2 years. All he had to do was simply make sales and bring in profit, so that after 2 years, he could afford to take on the expenses on his own business, because he probably would have quite a bit of money in that time. And even if he did have difficulties, knowing my dad, he would have jumped in to help right away. However, Chris rejected the money, saying how small it was, and he was expecting at least $17,000. That although the space my dad had rented for him was in a prime location, he stated that it was too small for him, and that he had found a much bigger space a few blocks away, and he expected my dad to pay for that as well. He said he had big ideas, and didn't want my dad to repress his ideas, so he needed the appropriate support. My mother just about lost her head hearing this, and chastised him about how ungrateful he was being. She asked him how many people were willing to do the things my dad had done for him. She asked him why he couldn't use this fund as an initial capital and begin his business and strive to make it successful so that he can afford to move into that bigger space after the 2 years lease was up. Well, he got upset and called his mother, with whom relations had improved significantly over the years, and she ended up tearing my dad a new one. She screamed in our native tongue about how after the stress he must have been under by not not getting into the university, the least my father could do is make sure that this dream of his is fully nurtured. She claimed that my father was being stingy towards Chris, saying that he has all this money, demanding that he do exactly what Chris is saying. She also implied that if he passed away tomorrow, would he then bury himself with his money, while also saying that he's not being a good example as an uncle. Now, my father did not respond and promptly ended the call. Later on, Chris's dad called him, and I don't know what was said, but after that, he came and picked up the check where he had previously dropped it and muttered a half-hearted thank you before leaving. My dad also received a call from his brother apologizing for his behavior. Fast forward 2 years, and this was now 2016. I was 18 or 19 years old, and my immediate younger sister was now in secondary school, and my other siblings were in primary school, so the financial burden on my father was quite a lot during this time. So he called Chris and had a talk with him. This was sometime in October, and my dad said that since Chris's business was going so well, that perhaps it was time for him to move out from our home maybe by the new year, so that the financial constraints could be alleviated just for a little bit. Now, mind you, Chris had lived with us for 18 years, since I barely was a year old, and when I was just a kid, he was 11 or 12 years old when he came into the house. And now, I was 18 to 19 years old, and he was just about 30 years old at this point. He never paid rent for one day or paid for utilities. My dad was always the one who did that. He never bought his own food or groceries either. My dad did that too for almost 2 decades that he lived with us. When my dad asked him to move out, he said nothing, and like before, he just called his mother. Now, I have no idea what was said, but she called my dad in a fury that evening, screaming her head off about how my dad has never really cared about her son's success, and brought up the $12,000 incident from a few years earlier. She said something along the lines of basically stating that you want him to leave your house while your wife's sister is still living with you. This is how little you care about your brother and his family, while also stating that her son doesn't need any kind of charity from my dad. Now, the wife's sister that she referred to was a young niece of my mom's who had lost her parents in militant actions in one of our cities, and she was barely 15 at the time. After that call, he packed his things and was gone in a few weeks. This was in 2016, and I haven't seen or heard from them since then. They view my dad as a bad person for not giving him the amount of money he wanted, and for asking him, a 30-year-old man with a thriving business, mind you, to move out of their house. And while this is nothing in the grand scheme of things, the entitlement of my extended family truly is baffling. Wow, that really is awful. Like, first off, it's not unreasonable to ask a 30-year-old man to move out. Like, seriously, it's time to go. You've got a successful business. You can absolutely stand on your own 2 feet. It's time to get up and get your own place and move on with your life. Because in reality, he was just mooching off of this guy's kindness. And also, Chris's mother by the name of Rita, she was being absolutely ridiculous. Like, seriously, how entitled do you have to be to sit there and be like, $12,000 isn't good enough? Like, come on, that's just really annoying. The fact that you're getting this money in the first place is a huge blessing in your life, and you could at least be grateful for once. Like, what are you doing? And I also find it super ironic that Rita was trying to claim that this guy's dad didn't care about Chris at all in the slightest, when in reality, Chris was plucked out of an awful home environment by this guy's dad in the first place. He shoulders the financial burden of his entire family, and Rita's gonna try and sit there and be like, you don't care about him. Like, seriously, Rita just doesn't care about Chris. So either way, it's pretty clear that your dad is a really good person. He stepped up and gave his family different chances to succeed. And that, in my opinion, is the mark of a good man and a good father. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Am I the jerk for telling my parents that if they want to charge me rent, they need to no longer treat me like a kid, but instead treat me like an adult? Here's what happened. So recently, I just had my 18th birthday yesterday. It was nothing big. I just went on a shopping spree with my own money, and when I came home, my mother and stepfather decided to sit me down and give me a whole lecture on how I'm an adult now and that I need to start paying rent because they were not going to house an adult for free, even though my stepdad's 23-year-old son lives here for free, but that's clearly besides the point. They told me that I would start paying $650 every first day of the month starting July 1st. I tried to bring up how my stepbrother doesn't even pay anything, and it was unfair to spring this on me when I just turned 18, but they responded that I must have the money since I went shopping today. Now, let me tell you, I pay for everything I have. My phone, my car, which isn't under any of their names, my clothing, even the food I eat, because they claim I eat too much of their food, even though I don't. So I agreed that I would, but if I'm gonna do that, since I pay for everything I own, they no longer could treat me like a kid. Instead of them looking at me like I'm their kid or stepkid, I would like to be looked at as a tenant, meaning that they could no longer give me curfews, and I would be disabling my Life 360 app, and they could no longer just barge into my room because I pay for it, and they could no longer demand anything from me besides rent on the first of every month. I also told them that if they couldn't follow my rules since I'm paying rent, then I will go rent a room somewhere else. This started an argument, and they started yelling about how I'm disrespectful and that this was their house and they didn't have to follow any rules of mine. So I just left. Now I've been getting calls from my family calling me ungrateful and that my mother could kick me out right now. What should I do? Honestly, I don't think what you're asking is that much of a big deal. Like seriously, you're renting a room by yourself. You're obviously paying for everything yourself as well. So the least your family could do is leave you alone and let you live your life. I don't think that's completely out of the ordinary. And I also think this is completely reasonable to ask of them. And the fact that there's a 23-year-old stepson who isn't paying for anything while you have to pay for everything on your own on top of the $650 a month, that in my opinion is completely unfair. You have every right to bring that up and be like, wait a second, what about him? Like they are very clearly playing favorites and that's not fair for you in the slightest. So you making the request of saying, hey, I'm going to be an adult now. You can't tell me what to do. You can't set up curfews. You're not going to barge into my room because I'm paying for it. Like this is not going to happen any longer. So good for you for standing up for yourself. Your family's being ridiculous and honestly they needed to be called out because getting treated like this is absolutely unfair and you deserve so much more out of your living situation than having two grown adults treating you this way. My boyfriend has become incredibly awful towards me, refusing to give me money and has an awful temper. And at this point, I'm seriously considering breaking up with him and moving back home to be with my parents. Here's what happened. So for a bit of backstory, I met my boyfriend back in 2017, and this was when I was 21 years old and he was 26. Both of us are originally from Eastern Europe, but not from the same country. We met in the United Kingdom and it was love at first sight. After only 2 months, we moved in together, and after 1.5 years, he decided he wants to move back to his country, and so I agreed. He's the youngest child of his elderly parents and wanted to be near them. That meant that I had to leave my parents, who both lived in the UK, and so we moved into his country. This was in the countryside in a small village with a population of maybe 100 people. Now, I'm originally from a big city, and so it was a bit of a culture shock for me personally, but I can't deny that I love the simplicity and the nature and all of the animals that come with it. But fixing my documents in order for me to work here is expensive, and as a result, I've spent the last 5 years staying home, not working at all. He works in construction and gets a minimum wage daily, so the first 2.5 years of our relationship were good. Still the new relationship high and hoping to make it through. He drinks and has been drinking since I met him. It's just beer, nothing more, but still in big amounts. I used to drink a bit as well when we first met, but after a few months I stopped, as I thought at least one of us should be awake and aware. In the last couple of years, his drinking has become extreme. I'm talking about 12 to 15 liters of beer every single day. We are both also smokers, and while I smoke 1 packet a day, he smokes upwards of 3 to 4 every single day. Although he works every day, we never have enough money, because in his words, he wants to live his life. We never do anything as a couple, we never go anywhere, and all that because he prefers to drink and smoke all day and then save some money. I have begged him a million times to let me manage the money, or at least give me some money every few weeks, just so I can try and put it away. But he always says to me, this is my money. I worked for it, and you can't tell me what to do with it. Now, I'm no saint. I have my flaws, as every person does. I hate doing housework, always have, and so I always leave it at the last minute. Before we moved to his country, I was working full-time since I was 17, and I honestly prefer being at work than doing housework. I will go with him some days at work, and I will help him out, because I prefer that to cleaning. He's never been physical or anything like that, but he does have a bad temper. The last few months, he gets angry with every little thing that doesn't go his way, and belittles and swears at me constantly. We barely do anything together anymore, and we're more like roommates than a couple, and this is honestly eating away at me. I'm now seriously considering leaving and going back to the United Kingdom to my parents. My only problem is that I know I'll have to start again from zero, and with no money to boot, and I don't want to rely on my parents on everything, as they have their own problems as well. And besides that, I've been with this person for more than 6 years. I love him. I'm so confused, and I really don't know what to do. I can't speak to anyone else as I have no friends, and my family will tell me to break up with him and just go back to them, while his family will tell me to stay. What should I do? If I'm gonna be brutally honest here, it sounds like your boyfriend is an awful person. Not only has he made it basically so you can't work in the area you live in, but he's also done nothing to help you get started in getting to work. You've spent the last 5 years staying at home. I mean, after year 2, I would have been losing my mind. I personally need to work. I'm like the original poster. I need something to do so that I feel productive in society. And not having that honestly would wear on my relationship with just about anybody, especially if I had a significant other who was not treating me right. This guy is really nasty to you. He clearly has a drinking problem, and his temper absolutely needs to be put under control. So you know what? I don't blame you for wanting to break up with him. If I was in your shoes, I would have already broken up with him. There's no way I would stay in that kind of environment. 5 years. Think about that for a second. They've spent 5 years not being able to work. That is unacceptable. That's not okay. I mean, back in the United Kingdom, you were working full time. You had your own money, and you didn't need to face the embarrassment of asking someone else for money. Because I'm right there with you. I don't like asking for money either. It's really embarrassing, and it's not my favorite thing to do. So seriously, if you are considering breaking up with him, I don't think that's a bad idea. He doesn't sound like a winner, and this really does seem like the sunken cost fallacy. You put all this work in and you don't want to give it up because of all the time you spent on it. But in reality, I wonder what it would be like if you did break up with him. Because based on the way you're talking right now, it kind of seems like you're stuck in a loop. And I don't think there's anything that's going to change anytime soon unless you make it happen. Am I the jerk for not wanting people at our pool unannounced and for not being willing to host a party I never signed up for? Here's what happened. So my fiance and I own a house with a pool in the backyard. His brother Jacob, that's not his real name, had asked the day before if him and his family, a wife and 3 kids, could come over on Sunday to swim after one of the kids' sports games, which was at a park close by us. Now, my fiance and I own a business together that requires us to work from home on Sundays. Everyone that we know is aware of this, including his brother. I voiced my opinion that I felt it was weird for people to be at our house while we were working in the basement, but my fiance assured that it would just be chill. He said it's normal for family to use people's pools even if they weren't home. So we let them come, thinking that they would swim for maybe an hour and then leave. But it wasn't just them. My fiance's parents also came, and we figured they would. But the kicker is that Jacob also invited 2 of his friends, plus their partners and their kids as well. We do not know these people, but both my fiance and I were not aware of this beforehand. So now it's a full-on party in our backyard while we are working away in the basement. I became very annoyed that they not only invited themselves over, but also some of their friends as well. It made me feel guilty that I couldn't be in my own backyard to host people because I was working. It also felt like they were just using the house and didn't really care about seeing us, the homeowners. Not to mention the house was a complete mess. We had a busy Friday and Saturday, and I didn't bother cleaning much before because I figured it would just be Jacob's family. Everyone was here from 1:00 p.m. until 7:00 p.m. We finished work around 3 p.m., at which time my fiance put on his swim trunks to join them outside. I got in a pretty bitter mood from it all, and I decided to stay inside. I didn't say hello to anyone because I figured that they weren't even here to see me. They were just here for my pool. I did some laundry and some cleaning up, and I did end up seeing a few people who were coming inside to use the washrooms. I said hi and I tried to make some small talk, but I really wasn't happy. My fiance came in and said that I was creating an awkward and unwelcoming atmosphere by not being outside with everyone else. I told him I never planned to have a party today, so I was just carrying on doing what I originally had planned, which was laundry and cleaning. My fiance keeps saying that I was rude for not joining them outside after work. He also says things like, the pool is meant to be used, and that it's now family time. And honestly, I am so frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, it kind of sounds like your fiance might be the problem here. Like, don't get me wrong, the brother is absolutely at fault as well and should not have invited all these other people over while you two were working. Like, that is completely inappropriate. If I'm saying, hey, I'm gonna come over and use your pool, it's only gonna be me and the people you expect. I'm not gonna then be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna invite 2 other families with me to enjoy the pool as well. Like, no, that doesn't fly, that is not allowed. So that behavior is completely inappropriate. But also, your fiance is not willing to see where you're coming from. You obviously don't want these people here for what, 6 hours? Like, you did not plan on having people here for 6 hours. And you're obviously not directly related to them, so telling them to get lost really does fall on your fiance's shoulders. He really should be the one to tell his family, hey, you've been here long enough, I think it's time we pack it up and get going. And I completely understand where the original poster's coming from. If I'm going to be hosting a party, I can know what to expect. I can say to myself, okay, from 1:00 until 7:00, I'm gonna have all these people here to enjoy the time at our pool. But when it's just sprung on you all of a sudden and your house is a mess and you're not set up to feed or take care of anybody that's here, that is incredibly unfair overall. And it honestly makes you feel very put out and kind of like on the spot. Like you can't feel like a good host if you don't know it's gonna happen. So in that regard, I think your fiance is being really short-sighted. And of course this guy would be okay with these people coming over. It's his direct family. He might not realize that this is putting you out in a serious way. So honestly, this is not your fault. They literally came over with no consideration of giving advance notice for extra people. And your fiance is clearly not being helpful in the slightest. So I think moving forward, it probably would be a good idea to have very clear boundaries of what is and isn't allowed. Because based on the way they've acted today, it is very clear that they're just going to take advantage of your pool. And unless you say something and come to some kind of agreement, then that is only going to continue to happen. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.